All right, today is July 11, and the time is 2:35. We will start the meeting now. I don't have any remark because we all, as you know, we are busy with the early election and visited so many of them.
Madam President,
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
I sent you just a minute ago, but you might not have seen it yet. If I could have an opportunity to make a brief comment at the beginning, I'd appreciate it.
okay, let me go through this. I don't have any remark.
Right, I'm just asking to make
Change the agenda, change the agenda. So you want to talk now?
I want to make a remark
Okay,
at the beginning of the meeting. It relates to the recent fires and vandalism at the churches in Bethesda.
oh, that's one, yes. So go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that I know that my thoughts and the thoughts of board members are with those who belong to the North Bethesda Methodist Church, the Wildwood Baptist Church, and the St. Jane Francis de Chantal Parish. The last one I know is a polling place for us. And I had occasion to visit it recently. It's a beautiful church. And some of you may know that over the weekend, there was vandalism at one and fires at two others. And that is just completely unacceptable. It shouldn't happen at any church, synagogue, mosque, or other religious institution in our country, and certainly not in our county. And I know I'd like to do whatever I can to let people know that our thoughts are with them and that we would like to help them in, and that this is not how our community feels. Our community is welcoming of everybody. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, David, that I wanted to say that, but you said it. And Alex, go ahead. Is Alex's church? Go ahead, Alex.
Madam President, yes, I am a member of St. Jane Francis de Chantal Church, and the attack that happened overnight on early in the hours of Sunday morning was, as devastating as it can get. And I just wanted to express my appreciation for our worthy secretary's comments and concern. And I would just hope that our leaders in the county will condemn this and speak out against it very publicly and forcefully, because we all have to stand together. And if good people say nothing, these things will continue.
I would just say, Alex, that before I got on this call, I Googled it and saw a number of articles about a statement from the county executive. I have not read it, but I know that he has said something and some others have. And I know that two of the legislators in District 16 had indicated that they had said it as well. And is it true that does Susan Lee pray there as well? Because she said that she had a call in to Father Geis.
Yes, Senator Lee is a member of the parish, so I had not heard that she had tried to contact him, but that's good. I hope she does.
She did indeed, and I appreciate it. You introduced me to Father Geis back when I visited over there, and it was an honor to meet him. And please let him know that we're all thinking of him and anything we can do to assist.
I will.
you,
Thank you.
Ami,
I didn't have one. I'm sorry.
oh, your hand is up. So
I
sorry.
didn't mean to.
Alan, you want to talk? You want to say
I just
something?
give a thumbs up.
So, no, but
I just want to say thank you. I agree with the comments. A statement from the county exec would be very welcome indeed. A statement and a condemnation would be most welcome. Thank you.
thank you so much, Alex. This campaign contribution, Alan,
No,
I don't have. David,
I don't have a campaign contribution, but when you come back to it, I'd like to ask something about the agenda. But
okay.
okay.
Alex,
I contributed $100 to Jim Shalleck for Attorney General.
me,
I contributed $1,000 to Kelly Schultz for governor.
Diane,
Nope.
Elise,
No,
nothing. Okay, yes, go ahead, David.
Just, I guess, a question and a comment about the agenda. I think it would be helpful to board members and to the public if our agenda were to have a little more content than just a listing of the categories. And I know that for today's meeting, we were always planning to discuss early voting, but our agenda does not
Yes,
actually.
it is. Look at under new business, old business. Yes.
Well, the one that was on the website earlier did not.
Go ahead. Alison, going to explain. Go
Yes,
ahead, Alison.
you will want as a board to revise your agenda. There was an update to the agenda circulated to board members, but it was not put on the website. So.
So the website does not indicate what we're talking about today. It has just a list of categories.
The website does not, under new business, indicate that I understand board members had agreed to discuss early voting, to receive a presentation about vote by mail, and to have a Canvas update, and that those subcategories under new business were not added to the version of the agenda on the website.
Right. And I guess what I'm suggesting, a couple of things. First is that it would be useful. I emailed the board president suggesting that we have a presentation on the mail-in ballots. And I understand that she agreed to do it, but I never got an email back saying that it was going to happen from her. And secondly,
we are going to talk about the election today.
you saw your email responded by saying we were going to talk about early voting today. I was asking about vote by mail. Those are both important and they both should be discussed, but you did not say that, yes, we're going to talk about vote by mail.
I was visiting the early voting site. Okay, go ahead.
We're prepared as a staff to discuss this.
No, I understand that the staff is prepared. The staff is always prepared, and I appreciate that. My comment is about board members being informed and about the public being informed. The public is right now in the midst of early voting. They're in the midst of worrying about whether their ballots are arriving, and they should be able to know when they look at our agenda that we're going to talk about it. And basically, it's been by word of mouth that people have found out that what we're going to talk about today.
Okay,
The
staff are very busy, and Lisa, the death and her family, but she's there today. They buried the family member, a tragic death. So Alison and everybody, they were very busy with the preparation and all of that. Boris is here to answer any question and do a presentation.
Okay,
right,
well,
Boris? Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate, and I'm sorry to hear about Lisa's circumstance. I would just suggest for future meetings that to the extent that we can let the public know about topics we're going to be discussing rather than just a list of new business, old business. Clearly, at every meeting, we're going to have approval of the agenda. We're going to have a discussion of our campaign contributions. We're going to have, if we have minutes, we'll have approval of the minutes. We'll have a director's report. We'll have new business and old business. I can almost give it to you by rote. But what the public wants to know when they decide whether to attend our meetings is the topics we're going to discuss to the extent we know them. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. So I would hope that when we can in the future, that we would let people know, the topics that we're going to discuss. I'm very pleased that we're going to discuss early voting. I'm very pleased that we're going to discuss mail-in ballots, and I'm very pleased that we're going to discuss the canvas. I know that all of those are very. I know that all of those are very important to members of the public. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Kevin
Yes,
Karpinski.
Kevin.
We need to add to the agenda under new business, selecting the sites to be audited. Janet needs those to be picked. They will remain sealed and will not be disclosed until after Election Day. But as part of the state board's procedures, we need to select, is it 5?
No,
Right.
10%.
To be audited.
250, how many places? We have 260.
10% of
We got to 26.
all right.
So we need to pick 26 polling places to be audited.
since you're talking, do you have anything to say? Attorney's report?
Oh, just under the attorney's report. No, I just want to thank the board members for all the time they've spent going out to polling places. The only legal issue that's come up that probably the board doesn't know about is that there probably is going to be a petition candidate who has until the first Monday in August to file and needs 1% of the total number of votes for the Councilmanic 4 race. So I've alerted Boris and his team that there probably will be a petition that needs to be processed. That's the only thing I have to report. And I see there's a comment about public comment, which I assume that's going to be the next thing.
So District 4,
Any question, raise your hand that we can see who wanted to talk. Yes, Alan.
Kevin, you said District 4?
I think Councilmanic 4, yes.
Thank you.
Any other question for Kevin? No, thank you. Now we are in new business.
No, we
Now,
gotta
we're,
go public comment.
oh, public comment, sorry, we forgot all about that. Public comment. You wanna
You have a
say
whole
the
list.
name? Yes, we have a whole list of public comment. Who's the number? Mr. Adu,
Open me to do?
Mr. Adu, or Adu? Mr. Adu,
Jerry, do we have a person by the name of Olabunmi Adu on the list? I'm looking in the attendee list.
sometimes they put, but they don't.
Please move on to the next. His
Yeah.
comments are not germane to early
We're going to, the
Okay.
Peter,
or voting.
The next is Peter Witzler.
Peter Whistler.
If we have
Peter,
a Peter Witzler among the attendees, Jerry, could you please promote him to be a panelist?
no,
He's there and he has his hand up.
Okay, let's give Jerry a minute to promote him to be on the panel. Do we have
Yeah.
Peter Witzler joining us now?
Yes, hi, this is Peter Witzler. Am I able to just go?
Yeah,
Mr.
go ahead.
Witzler, do you have a camera?
I do, sorry, give me one moment. With apologies, I'm doing a little multitasking to pick up the kids from camp right now, so pardon the
Okay.
background, but I'm not driving.
Go ahead, your nickel.
So hi. Okay, great, thank you. So my nickel, appreciate that. So my name is Peter Witzler. I'm a member of Progressive Maryland. I'm here to testify about an issue with the voting screens. So not all of the at-large candidates appear on the first page of the electronic voting machines. So in order to see all of the candidates, you have to click to the next page. That is in a disadvantage specifically to that candidate on the last page, Lori Ann Sales, for the at-large race. This is a big problem that hopefully we can find a remedy for. So I don't know what a proper remedy would be. I'm not a lawyer. I don't even play one on TV, but it seems that there should be a way to fix this. Perhaps the voting judges being sure to say something, maybe without mentioning the candidate's name, but at least to say that they need to look at both pages of the at-large seats in order to see all the candidates, or provide some other instruction to folks using the touchscreen voting to ensure that the voters see all candidates of the at-large race. So again, I think this is a really unfair situation that has happened to this particular candidate. The voters see every other candidate besides Lori Ann Sales on the first page. And unless they're told specifically that they need to click to the next page to see all the candidates, they will not see her name. So I hope that the board can do something to resolve that as soon as possible.
Alyssa?
Allison,
Early-
So as a matter of procedure, I guess I would just like to inquire. I believe that we have several individuals who would like to speak to the same topic. Madam President, would you like to have each one of them speak, or would you like us to discuss the
No,
issue
let-
substantively?
Let them speak because then we can put things together and
Okay, thank you.
so go ahead. What was the other one?
Okay, the
And
next,
Thank you for the time.
Yeah,
Thank
we
Thank
will.
you for coming.
the next person on the list would be Delegate Janelle Wilkins.
Mr. Wilkins?
Jerry, if you can promote Janelle Wilkins to the panel. And actually you can move Mr. Witzler back to the attendee list.
Okay, no, he's not there.
I'm just confirming before we move on.
Yeah.
She is there. She is listed among the attendees. She's just hasn't been promoted yet.
Wilkins?
Yes, there she is.
Oh, okay.
Here we go.
Janelle.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Very much appreciate the opportunity to speak today. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm out at the Civic Center, waiting on some more voters to arrive. I want to start by thanking the board for all of your hard work and the staff. I think that overall, given the number of different challenges that have taken place, I'm seeing us able to have a free and fair election for everyone. So I do appreciate that. And I've seen many of you, Chair Naheed, Mr. Naaman, Dr. Zelaya, Allison out and about. So very much appreciate it. But to get to my comments, again, I'm Delegate Janelle Wilkins, for the record, represent District 20, and I'm also the chair of election law in the Maryland House of Delegates. And I would like to inquire about a few things and ask for a comment from the board. Number one, what are the board's plans around the high number, it seems, of mail-in ballots that are outstanding? How many mail-in ballots are outstanding countywide? And is there sort of a shift towards and push of some resources and messaging around getting folks to return those ballots? I know there's a high number outstanding in my district, and I want to be a partner. I know a lot of candidates want to be a partner in helping to make sure that those are returned. I also want to underscore the issue of the electronic ballots versus the paper ballots, and in particular, ask some specific questions. Was the board aware of the fact that I believe it's more than one candidate, more than one race that's on the second page? What did the board do to educate the candidates and also, more importantly, the public about that, to make sure that we have full fairness in the election? And was the electronic ballot shared with candidates so that we could see it in the same way that we're able to see the paper ballot, and why it was not? And finally, I want to check in on the mail-in ballot request, given that the ballot request deadline, I believe, well, for certain, depending on how you request it, is due tomorrow. The request is due tomorrow. Are we able to guarantee that every single person who requests a ballot or has already requested it will receive it in time, and by when? That's all. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your work.
Thank you
And
very
I'm
much.
looking forward to the comments.
Thank you very much. Boris, you want to talk about the mail-in ballot?
Yes, I can just,
I thought you wanted to finish all of the comments
Yeah,
first.
but this is mail-in ballot, so we want So
Okay,
you
'cause
wanna
we do
bring
have that on the
that-
agenda.
Okay.
This is a separate item on the
We will-
agenda.
to, yeah, we will answer it toward the end of our public. The next one, council member.
The next one is Lorianne Sales. That is the next person to promote from attendee to the panel.
Okay. Jerry? Okay. Yeah, she's there.
Okay, there you are.
Yes,
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you to the Board of Elections for allowing me the opportunity to testify. And I will echo Delegate Wilkins' comments about the leadership of the Board of Elections and your surveillance at all of the polls, early voting precincts. So I am calling because I'm testifying because I am the candidate on the second page of the at-large electronic ballot. It was brought to my attention after a voter came out and mentioned to me that she had trouble finding my name on the ballot when she went to vote. And I said, well, I know I'm the last name on the ballot. I even put it on my mailer, go to the bottom to help us get to the top. But I didn't realize that the electronic ballot was set up totally different from the one that I approved via email that I was sent from the Board of Elections. And so it was very disappointing when I went into vote and they offered me the option, do you want a paper ballot or an electronic ballot? Of course, I chose the electronic ballot because we're doing everything electronically. And while you can advance to see the entire list of candidates, you cannot, you'd have to go back and deselect a candidate in order to add my name as a fourth candidate. And so it's a huge disadvantage, you know, not just being at the bottom of the ballot, but being on a separate page with no indication of, you know, what office I'm running for. I don't even know what the auditory explanation is for people who do have a vision limitations. And so are they announcing names of the second page without the office? And so there are a lot of disadvantages for someone like me on the ballot. And I know that previously in 2016, this problem happened before. The candidates were not notified about the you know, huge differences in the electronic versus paper. And in 2016, they totally got rid of the electronic ballots, except for people who have to use those ballots. This was the first year I've gotten to the polls and someone has offered me the option. It's the first year that I've chosen this option and probably wouldn't have chosen this option had I not been offered this. But as a candidate, I wish I could have given the same permissions to review how my name looked on the ballot, how the ballot would look to other voters. And I'm continuing to get calls from voters who are voting and continuing to experience the same confusion. Your name's not on the ballot. Your name's not on the ballot. Oh, I had to do this in order to get there. And so it's just not fair when we're trying to make it easier for people to vote. The paper ballot should match with what the voters receive. And all I ask is that we either get rid of this or improve the process by election day. And I thank you all for your incredible bipartisan leadership on this very important task at hand, and appreciate the opportunity for coming for allowing us to testify on this issue, and look forward to a favorable outcome for all voters to easily cast their ballots. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will have the answer toward the end of the public hearing. We will answer to all these questions, right?
Okay.
Okay.
The
ahead.
next person who signed up to offer public comment is Bruce Turnbull. Do we have Bruce Turnbull on the list, Jerry?
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, am I on?
Go ahead, sir.
You are. We can hear you,
Turn your
although we
camera on,
cannot
Bruce.
see you at this point. Let's see.
All right, sorry, okay. Thank you for this opportunity. I'll try to summarize a bit since I don't want to repeat what has been said a couple of times. My name is Bruce Turnbull. I'm appearing on behalf of myself as a Montgomery County voter and on behalf of Jews United for Justice Campaign Fund, on whose board I sit. I've voted in Montgomery County in every election since 1980, and while voting in the current Democratic primary election, I encountered an unprecedented ballot issue. As a result of the issue involved, myself, JUFK, and there's also a letter signed by a number of organizations that has been submitted to the board, this board, and to the state board. We request that the Board of Elections take emergency action to fix this ballot design problem that could unfairly impact the outcome of an election for at least one office on the ballot. And the problem has been described before. I won't repeat that. It seems to us that, while voters are forced to click through to the second screen or to the third if there are three, anyone who's already selected a candidate or four candidates in at-large race would have to go back to deselect in one of their original picks in order to add the candidate from the second screen. That is a substantial hardship. And in a county where the 2018 Democratic primary saw the county executive candidate elected by a margin of 77 votes and one of the state delegates by a margin of 12 votes, even a small number of voters becoming confused and not voting for the candidate whom they wish to vote for, it could have a substantial effect on the outcome of the election. As has been said, it was made even worse by the fact that the paper ballot was what was advertised to candidates and the public as the sample ballot, with no warning that the touchscreen ballot would be substantially different. This appears to violate the advance notice publication requirements of the Maryland election law. It also appears to violate the state law requirements that ballots must be easily understood by voters and must present candidates in a fair and non-discriminatory manner. And as a result, we believe that the Board of Election must immediately instruct the provider of the software to modify the presentation of candidates. If you need to work with the state board, work with the state board to get that done. And if a software fix can't be made, the Board of Elections must instruct poll workers to emphasize to voters, both in writing and verbally, that candidates appear on multiple pages for several offices, and in particular for those offices where there's only one candidate on the second page, including the at-large race. And you should engage in an immediate, vigorous public information campaign to alert voters to the situation, including through press releases, social media, and news media outreach. Given that early voting is more than half over, the urgency of the situation cannot be overstated. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next person on the list is Elwood Gray. Elwood Gray, are you here? Jerry, can you promote him to be a panelist?
Yeah. No. Let's see. It's not
I
there.
do not see Elwood Gray. We can come back. We'll go on to the next person on the list, would be Jeffrey Gross.
Let's see Jeffrey Gross.
I see him on the list.
You see him on the list?
Yes. His last name is spelled Groce.
Yeah. Jerry? Oh, yes, I see that. Yeah. Jerry?
Afternoon, everyone. Can I just roll right into it?
Oh, yes, go ahead, sir. Go ahead. Mr.
Okay,
Gross.
first of all, I want to thank everyone for all their efforts. And I know these are not easy things to do. I just want to
If you have a
echo all the
camera you could
previous
turn on,
comments.
that would be helpful.
Sure. It says on here, I'm looking at myself and seeing you. I'm not
To
sure
the video
why.
at the bottom left. The camera.
Yeah, and it's open and not crossed out. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry about that. So again,
Now
I'm gonna
we
be
see.
brief. I'm not going.
I think you're freezing. but Go ahead.
I'm just here at Mid-County Rec, Early Voting Center. I just want to thank everyone for all their efforts and everything. All the comments previously made, I would make those too. Do not want to bore you by keep repeating that. The sole objective in this is just to be fair to all candidates, and for all the reasons previously mentioned. The system as it was, I believe is not fair. And when it was first brought to my attention, it wasn't one or two people, it was several people, voters who brought it to my attention. I thought they were the ones who had the problem and they were not actually accessing the system or doing it right. But once it was a slew of people, then I realized that we did have a serious problem on our hands, and we did our best to alert all powers to that be about this issue. And again, all we want is We believe there's an issue. There is an issue. There's a remedy. Do the remedy. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
The next person on the public sign-up list is Michael Tardif. Do we have Michael Tardif?
Jerry? Okay, yes, he's there. Mr. Tardif? He was there.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Michael Tardif. I'm a resident of District 18 and simply want to echo the comments made by the other speakers regarding the problem with the electronic screen ballot and the voters who, the candidates who appear on the second screen. I think that any remedy that can be implemented in the remaining days of early voting would be very important, even if that is only the election judges alerting the voters to scan to the next screen to see all 8 candidates in that race, and if possible before election day to modify the screen so that all 8 candidates appear on one screen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we have received a supplemental list of those who signed up. And the first voter or person on the supplemental list is Susan Turnbull. Do we have Susan Turnbull?
Hi, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Susan Turnbull. I'm a resident of Bethesda. I'm also the former chair of the Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee, the former chair of the Maryland Democratic Party, and the former vice chair of the Democratic National Committee. I represented Maryland at the DNC for 19 years. And so I have some experience here. I've been a candidate for office and was on the Montgomery County ballot twice, most recently as the Lieutenant Governor nominee in 2018. I've been actively and personally involved in every Maryland election since 1982. I've never missed an election since 1980, and I've never been more disappointed in the voting process than what I experienced last week. You've heard from many people that multiple races have candidates listed on screens with no office or direction on how many votes could be cast. This is unconscionable. I support the advocates' recommendations for efforts to correct the inequality that this situation has created. When I cast my vote, I received no instruction at the Jane Lawton Center on July 7th, other than where to place the ballot's physical notch in the reader. This was a complete dereliction of responsibility. In subsequent conversations with Board of Elections members and staff, I have been told directly that they were aware of the issue of having different candidates on different screens well before the election, actually for many years. So I can't understand nor accept the response to apparent insufficiency. It appears that there was absolutely no public information campaign or appropriate training of poll workers to deal with this matter. The travesty of all of this is that it could have been avoided, and it should have been avoided. Not making candidates aware of this issue, as Delegate Wilkins had raised, and as Lori Ann has raised, has subject the board to a legal challenge of the results. This could have been avoided. It is unfair to candidates, their supporters, and to all voters. Every effort should have been made to make the electronic ballot identical to the paper ballot. Knowing that the inequality was possible, candidates should have been made aware. No voter should ever be confused when voting. It is ridiculous that a person with my computer literacy and experience was anxious and confused. I honestly thought that candidates had been dropped from the ballot and attempted to report that to the election judge. So what comes next? The Montgomery County Board of Elections should immediately take every possible action. If that means making it clear to voters that there is a difference between the electronic ballot and the paper ballot. They need to do so when people are voting. They also need to implement every resource to have the software fixed immediately to remedy this problem. I understand it's state software, but at a bare minimum, an attempt should be made to make certain that no voter uses a touchscreen without explicit direction. Not even having the header on a page with a candidate's name is simply a mess. I obviously feel very strongly about this, and I applaud the advocates who are working so hard about this. This is a mistake. It needs to be fixed. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next person who signed up to offer public comment is Matthew Green Jr. Do we have Matthew Green? I am looking at the list for myself. I don't see Matthew Green. So Jerry, the next person would be Deborah Volmer. Do we have Deborah Volmer? Yes, I do see Deborah Volmer. Ms. Volmer, you can unmute.
Okay, that's it. You don't have any.
Just unmute herself.
Ms. Volmer.
Oh, she's there.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
need to
You voted.
unmute.
Thank you. Congratulations.
You're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. And I did just vote a few hours ago, and it was at the Lawton Center. And when I voted for governor, I was a little concerned because my candidate, John King, was not in the first group, but I had read the instructions and had been told about checking for the next page. And I had one name involved in mind. So, you know, I would thought that was kind of unfortunate, but maybe not so bad. But when I got to the county council at large, Montgomery County Council at Large race, and I had in mind that I was going to vote for Lori Ann Sales, and I didn't see her in that first grouping, which was what, 7 candidates when there were 8 in the race. Well, I'd allowed myself a lot of time to be sure I absorbed all the instructions and was following the rules. And so I did go to the next page and I was able to vote for her, which I'm glad for, but I have to believe that that is going to cost her votes. And this should not be, and I think the remedy needs to be immediate. You know, people are saying by election day. We're in election day. Early voting is part of the election. So I would say, you know, this has got to be an immediate fix. Again, I just, if the race is close for the county council, county council at large race, if it's close between a few candidates, how do you solve something like this? I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, you can't go back in time, but I really do think that.
Thank you very much for your input. Thank you.
Immediate fix, an immediate remedy. Thank you.
Thank you. No, Alistair, go ahead.
Sure. I'm going to give a very truncated election director's report because we're going to cover the rest under new business. But I do want to provide you with the, first off, at the close of registration, and this is information directly from the State Board of Elections website, of the eligible active voters on the precinct register by county. In Montgomery County, we had 670,472 eligible active voters. As of the close of the polls yesterday at early voting, our unofficial early voting turnout, and these are unofficial figures based on the check-in, we had 7,791 voters who had checked in to vote at one of Montgomery County's early voting sites. And our mail-in ballot figures sent and returned, we had 107,640 mail-in ballots requested and 10,509 that we had logged as received into the statewide voter registration system. Those are all numbers that are directly off of the state's website. So I wanted to cover that. We will cover the rest under new business. And I would like, with your permission, Madam Chair, I'd like to go ahead and speak to the issue that certainly is at the front of everyone's lips as far as the ballot design, the configuration of the ballot marking device. And I do want to say that this is not a new issue in the sense that it is an issue that was the current voting system that we are using. We used for the first time in 2015, Rockville's municipal election was the first use of the equipment. And we did observe and see a concern from candidates in that election about the way that the ballot was displayed on the ballot marking device. And that was brought to the attention of the State Board of Elections at the time. And if anyone who is sort of focusing on this issue right now would like to go back and take a look, there is a page on the State Board of Elections website where public comment was sought on the issue in 2019. And it gives links to the board meeting minutes for the State Board of Elections where this issue was discussed at length. And there were multiple candidates who testified at the time in the 2016 election about the use of the ballot marking device. And the end result of that is that we have a set of instructions that are given to the election judges. It's a 2-page set of instructions that is from the State Board of Elections of information that is supposed to be given to any voter prior to using the ballot marking device. And the first 3 bullets of the approximately 20 bullets of information to be given to voters using the ballot marking device. The first one says, if there are more than 7 candidates in a contest, touch more below the list of candidates to see the rest of the candidates' names. The second item is, if you want to go back to the other candidates' names, touch more at the top of the screen. And then the third is that you cannot go to the next contest until you have seen all of the candidates' names. These are words that are given to us verbatim from the State Board of Elections to be used statewide. Understandably, there are sometimes contests that are only local in nature, only countywide in nature. There are also contests that are statewide in nature. And so it is of importance to the State Board of Elections, just as we have a statewide voting system, that we have a uniformity in how we handle the instructions to the voters on how to interact with the system. It did come to our attention on the first day of early voting. I know I received a complaint that there had been at least one voter who felt that they had not been given this information by one of our election judges out there at the polls on the first day of early voting. And so our response to that, and this was recognizing that it is a lengthy set of instructions, and in lieu of a summary or our election judges providing this information in their own words, we provided a second set of instructions to our election judges, giving the same verbatim instructions from those first 3 at the top of the state's list of everything to be given to the voter who uses the ballot marking device. But we reiterated in the exact same words that were given to us by the State Board of Elections, the specific phrasing of the instruction to give the voter, so that this is handled in the same way statewide. I do want to note, I believe there are 10, we checked, and there are, I believe, 10 contests on the ballot where there are more than 7 candidates in the contest. Now, some of those are in the Democratic primary, some of those are in the Republican primary. But this is not a question that is limited to a single contest on the ballot this time. And so at this time, what we are doing is that we are reiterating, we are emphasizing, we are repeating to our election judges the instructions that they have been given by the State Board of Elections for how to inform every voter of how the interaction is with the ballot marking device. I do want to note that it is mandatory for a voter to click the more button when there are more than 7 candidates. And it is not possible then to go on to the next. You can't click the next button to the next contest until you have clicked that more button to see all of the candidates that are on the contest. And I will note, just in the interest of everyone having this information as this discussion continues, I'm sure, and I know has been brought to the attention of the State Board of Elections, that we do have the sample ballot, yes, does go out with a single version of the ballot. For those of you who will remember when the predominant method that voters used to vote here in Montgomery County or statewide in the state of Maryland was a touch screen. Those screenshots were the touch screen. Those voters who voted by mail, those voters who voted using a provisional ballot or a paper ballot, that layout was not included in the sample ballot that was mailed out at the time. Once we moved to a paper ballot system with the expectation that the predominant form of voting was going to be the hand-marked paper ballot, then that became the version that was provided by the state and was provided by the county in our sample ballot. And I will note, I just was tallying, I believe we have 8 different versions of ways that the voter could interact with the ballot. We have the standard, sort of what we include in the sample ballot, the 17-inch ballot that a voter would hand mark at the polls or that is mailed out to voters voting by mail. We also have an 11-inch ballot that is what is sent out to any voter who uses the web delivery to mark their ballot and to mail it back to us. And so the configuration of contests is different on the 11-inch ballot than it is on the 17-inch ballot. We also have the ballot marking device display that every voter is given the choice of interacting with at the polls. And that can be provided in a regular display in a large print. It can be in Spanish and in the large print, and it can also be in an audio version in the English or in the Spanish. And so I just wanted to make sure that that information was known to everyone who is commenting on this. We certainly do hear the feedback. We do hear the concern. And we have passed that information along. We will pass that information along to the State Board of Elections. And I certainly will defer to any of our board members who wish to comment on this issue. But from the staff's perspective, what we have done is that we have reiterated the instructions from the State Board of Elections. We have passed this information along to the State Board of Elections in the past, and we will again.
Alex, and I'd like to speak on it.
Yes, please.
So, hi, my name's Kevin Karpinski. I'm the attorney to the Board of Elections. I've been the attorney to the Board of Elections since 2003. I want to give a little history about this issue. Allison's correct. It became an issue in 2015 when it first was implemented in the city of Rockville race. And then in 2016, because there were 2 functionality issues. One was the number of candidates that could appear on the actual ballot. And then there was an issue in terms of how well it toggled between the races. There was a concern behind that. So you're correct. One of the speakers said it wasn't used that much in 2016. It was limited to those who really needed to use the machine. And that was the case in 2016. Subsequently, the State Board of Elections got sued by the National Federation for the Blind, and as part of a settlement of that case was that the ballot marking device has to be used in every polling place in the state of Maryland. And in fact, we must make sure that we have a requisite number of voters that vote on the ballot marking device so that they cannot identify the voter. Now, in terms of what the Montgomery County Board of Elections has done, after this issue arose in 2016, the Montgomery County Board of Elections wrote to the state board. Certain board members attended the state board meetings and testified on this issue and urged that the State Board of Elections take the appropriate steps to correct both of the issues, the screen number of candidates that can appear on the screen and the functionality issue, which was identified. My recollection is that there were some assurances that would be done. And then a determination was made by the state board, because it is a state system, that they were not going to be correcting the issue in terms of the number of candidates that would appear on the screen. So I apologize if the local board of elections for Montgomery County has been aware of it. We have advocated for changes to the system. We will continue to advocate for changes to the system. I was notified of the issue the very first day. The only thing we did reach out to the State Board of Elections. It's too late to change because they can't change the configuration of the names on the ballot, and it's too late to change the header. So we're doing the best we can, which is to go ahead and re-emphasize. We had people reach out to each early voting site, speak to the center managers, and go ahead and explain we want these instructions to be given and an emphasis provided that there is a second page that the voter needs to look out in terms of casting their vote. So that's all I'd like to say. I'm sure the board members who I know many were on the board back then will wish to address.
Any board member, David, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, I want to say that I think the current situation is appalling. I think that I know that I have colleagues who probably feel the same way. I think the idea that there's a second page with one name and no listing of what contest it is terrible. I do want to correct or clarify one statement that was made by my friend and former party chair, Susie Turnbull, with whom I served on the Central Committee. We were aware that there is a problem, as Kevin indicated, back in 2015, and we worked very hard to get the state to fix that problem, and we were unsuccessful, and the state has continued to put off the fix. As I understand it, there is a software fix that can put 14 on a page instead of 7 by doing it in 2 columns. So they literally can do it without making the print smaller. That was my understanding of the last time we heard about this issue, but the state, for whatever reason, continues to have other priorities. And when Kevin and Allison made reference to the fact that we are a state system, what that means is that by law, we are required to do what the state tells us. We do not get to tell them what to do. They do get to tell us what to do. If we were able to tell them what to do, this would have been fixed a long time ago. Because as Kevin indicated, we had members who testified to the state board. We wrote to the state board. We indicated that it was a problem. The navigation issue, which I think was, made it even worse, because apparently when it used to be at the very beginning, when Rockville was doing its election in 2015, the navigation issue was such that if you went back, instead of going back to the same race, it took you back to the beginning of the ballot. And that, of course, was an even worse problem. But I mean, it's terrible that we are in this situation. I brought this to Kevin's attention at about 10 o'clock on the first day of early voting, in terms of the county council at large race. As I understand it, and our staff can confirm this, our staff actually checked with the state to find out if they could add a header on the second page to indicate that it was a continuation of that election. And the indication was that the software could not be changed in that fashion in the time that we have. In other words, it is a part of the software. It's not like there's a setting that we can change. We can't change it, and the state says they can't change it. So under that circumstance, we don't have the option, as I understand it, of changing the software. Then you get to the question of why are we encouraging people to use the ballot marking device? And Kevin made reference to that lawsuit. As I understand it, under that lawsuit, we are required to offer this option to people in order for them to vote on the ballot marking device. Because the National Federation for the Blind feels just as strongly that it's important that, and I don't disagree with them, that blind voters not be singled out for using the ballot marking device, that everybody would, be able to do that. So I'm looking for a solution for this, but as I understand it, we are, as a county board, between a rock and a hard place. I think it's great that we put out a reminder. I would think that we could put out more reminders. I would think that we could use our social media presence to put out more reminders to the voters. It's not just the county council at large race that has only one candidate on the second page. But the thing I wanted to correct is that we board members knew there was an issue with the ballot marking device, but we never saw, as board members, we never saw the layout of the ballot on the ballot marking device for this election. That was never presented to board members. So I never had the opportunity. I would like to think I would have found it, but I never had the opportunity to say, why is there only one name on the second page? I have a question for our staff, and I don't know whether they can answer it. It might be a question for the state. Is it possible under this software to, rather than having 7 on one page and 1 on the next page, to have either 3 and 5 or 4 and 4? Is there an option, for the board to recommend a different layout among the candidates under this current system? Because that obviously would be one issue. It shouldn't be one candidate. And I understand that in the Democratic nomination for county council in District 5, they have the same situation. They have 8 candidates for one, in that case, for one spot, and it's on the second page. So that would be a question that I would have. And I'd like to ask my colleagues, what can we do to encourage the state? But among us all, we should be able to have at least some influence over members of both parties of the state board and the governor and the legislature. What can we do to encourage this to be fixed in the future? And for our staff, what have you been told in terms of the inability to fix it for this election? I would love to have an immediate fix. I'm not sure if it's technically possible.
Thank you, David. Diane.
Yeah, I agree with all of the comments prior to this, and I want to thank in particular the citizens, the voters who brought this concern to us. Well, that who have expressed to us how concerning this is. I absolutely agree with everything that was said. I am very disappointed that the state board was unable to purchase the upgrade that would be necessary to allow us to fix this. And I think if we could just bring that pressure to bear, that would be a very valuable effort. I like David's suggestion, if at all possible, that we would be able to split on the screen, at least the candidates there, but that'll be up to staff to let us know if we can. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Ami?
My suggestion, at least for the moment, for an immediate fix is, can we post a large sign in each, in front of each electronic ballot marking device that points out this problem? I realize we can't fix this overnight. Software doesn't get fixed overnight, but we could certainly print signs and post them.
That's a good idea.
Like that idea too.
I think that's great, Ami.
Ami, okay, go ahead. Alice.
Have all the board members spoken? Okay. Did you want to any further? No.
Going to respond?
No, I think that's a good idea. I mean, it's great. It's fine.
Okay, well, let's do it. At least then we're responding.
And can someone also please, from the staff, answer the questions that I asked about our use, our other opportunities for communication? Can we use our social media to emphasize this point? What else can we do to get the word out? And is it in fact the case that there is no technical fix possible this year?
Of
Or
course.
I should say this election.
Yeah, we can use the media and I mean, social media to do that. We were just talking about it. We will do that. We try to do that. And
I'll work with Kevin to make sure, I want to make sure that we very carefully craft the phrasing of this message.
Yeah.
And so I'll work with Kevin and with Hilberto to craft the language to be used
Yeah.
for social media and for signage. We do not have the ability to, I think the example given was to have 7 candidates instead of 7 candidates and 1 to then have
we cannot
4 and
change
4 or 3 and 4. That is not,
that possible.
not only is that not something that we can do midstream in the middle of an election, but the way that the software is designed explicitly takes that, we don't have any authority to configure the way that this appears at all. The database just generates it into a, in a standard format.
Okay, thank you.
As a legal matter, are we obligated to offer voters the opportunity to vote on the ballot marking device? My impression was that was part of the instructions that we had received from the state, or is that something that the local board can make a decision on?
No, David, that was part of the settlement, that the election judges are to tell voters, you have the choice of casting a paper ballot or using the ballot marking device.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. So we don't have any choice for that one, that we can use social media to explain the situation.
Okay.
Well,
Any other motion?
but we also can send reminders to our election judges as they are offering the option to use the machine.
Yes.
That
we will do
I mean,
Yes.
let me ask, as I understand it, our election judges were trained on this. Is that correct?
Yes, our election judges were trained on this. They were given the instructions that that the state had provided, and we sent out the one reminder with the information that's relevant in part to this specifically. And I've been hesitant to deviate from the verbatim language given to us by the State Board of Elections, but I will work with Kevin and with Hilberto to make sure that language that we put out on social media and that we put together for signage are cleared by our attorney.
Okay, can we also ask our chief judges to do a daily reminder because the crews change every day? Can we have them do a daily reminder to their election judges of the need to give this information?
I can certainly do
Yeah, we
that.
can do that.
And is there anything else that we can do to we have a number of people who seem to have commented that they did not get such a statement from their election judges. Is there anything else we can do to try and increase compliance with that script?
We're gonna put up a sign.
We'll put up a sign.
Hold
We'll do,
on.
yeah, our
Yeah.
Janet Ross, our deputy
Janet,
director would like. to
Okay,
speak.
Janet,
I
go
can
ahead.
explain why they were not telling them at first, because the state gave it as an option. You did not have to say it. You could hand the voter the paper. You didn't have to say it. And then when we found out about the person on the second page, we told them to please say it from now on. There was an option that the state provided before we had to read the whole thing verbatim. And then they came out and said, you don't have to do it. You tell them this. And if they want more information, you hand them the paper and let them read them themselves.
It looks in the chat like there are people who got neither. But it sounds like if we do a reminder that people have that, should be doing that. Does it make sense for voters to be told about this before they make a decision as to which version of voting they want to do? In other words, if I haven't voted yet, if I go to the polls and they offer me the ballot marking device or to vote on a paper ballot, would it make sense for a judge to, suppose my answer is, well, I don't know, tell me what the difference is. I mean, do we want our judges to be telling people what the differences are?
We'll put up a sign. I think that will accomplish the goal there. I mean, one of the issues that I think people are facing is that just the sheer number of words that are in these instructions to be given to every voter. And it's a lot to read. It's a lot to, it is being summarized. What I will work with our PIO on, what I will work with our attorney on, is to make sure that we give some clear and concise language. And the fewer words we give, the easier it will be for that to be given both verbatim and on a sign for people to read it and see it as they're checking in and interacting with this process.
Alan, your hand is up. Oh,
Yeah, a couple of things regarding the National Federation of the Blind lawsuit against the State Board of Elections. As a result of that, people in here ought to realize that we have to give every voter the opportunity to use the ballot marking device. The National Federation for the Blind was concerned that the blind would be steered to that device and nobody else would be using it. They were afraid of having blind voters identified at polling places if they were the only people using the ballot marking device. I've used it myself. I've enjoyed it in the past. It's very popular. At one early voting center I went to this past week, it was used 3-to-1 over the paper ballots. Another place it was half and half. It's a very popular thing. I noticed here from this decision by Judge Gallagher in the U.S. District Court back in 2020, she mentions in there about the fact that in races with more than 7 candidates, voters have to affirmatively navigate between screens to see the names of candidates with surnames later in the alphabet. And this is an issue here that we need to be aware of. The state board needs to be aware of this a lot better.
thank you. Diane?
Yeah, just on the point about being directed to the ballot marking devices, and I brought this up in past discussions. I understand and appreciate what Alan said, the decision and needing to make sure that just the blind weren't using the ballot marking devices, but I also want to put an emphasis on the fact that I don't want to see people being encouraged to use the ballot marking device rather than the paper ballot. I just personally think the closer I am to my vote and having it counted is what I consider my gold standard. And I noticed in the chat that at some centers, people have mentioned that voters have been encouraged to use the touch screen. I would like to see an unprejudiced offer of both, but not an encouragement to steer people to the ballot marking versus the paper.
They are not encouraged. They just ask them. I've been there when the voter came. They just ask them, do you want to vote on paper ballot or to the electronic? They ask them. They
Yeah,
don't.
I would hope that's how it's happening. It has been communicated that encouragement, that it may not be like that. So I just want to weigh in on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex? Yes.
Madam President, thank you. I guess I wanted to make a suggestion that perhaps we should review the letter that we sent to the state board in 2016 and perhaps see if the board members think it would be a good idea to send another letter, echoing the concerns we expressed then, describing new concerns and issues we see now. The state board membership has changed since 2016. Maybe they would be more open to this. And in connection with that, I guess I would ask Mr. Karpinski, would he be able to remind us, do we know the reason why the state board would not implement the software fix that apparently was available?
My understanding was that they determined that it would be too costly to do.
Figured.
And so a decision was made that it was not going to be done at that time. And I want to say that the local board, the Montgomery County Board of Elections, I think I have to go back and look at my file, but I think a letter was sent. There were individuals who testified And then it was determined that the changes were not going to be made, and members went back and testified again. I remember specifically.
We were
former
very-
member of this board, Mary Ann Keith,
Yes.
being, I would consider, highly exercised by the fact that the board was told that this was going to be resolved by 2018, and it was not.
That is exactly correct. I remember it exactly the same way. There was basically, we wanted it by 2016. We were told it couldn't be done by 2016, but it would be done by 2018. And then it wasn't done by 2018. And yes, we were all very exercised about that, and we worked very hard on it. I want to point out one additional advantage of this software fix that we really should be talking about. We now have 14 early voting sites, and because we're using paper ballots, and because every precinct in a primary has 3 ballot styles, because every precinct has its own ballot style and every party has its own ballot style. So we have like 750 some ballot styles, and that means that and since voters from any precinct can vote anywhere in the county, we have to have paper ballots at every early voting site, for all of those, for all of those places. If we ever had a ballot marking device that was completely functional and completely fair to everyone, and I know we're not there yet, but I'm just saying that if we did have that, it could pull up the correct ballot style, and we would save an incredible amount of paper, an incredible amount of labor that's required for all that paper. And it would just be a lot easier for everybody all around. I agree with Alex. I think we should very soon send another letter, indicate that we are just as exercised as we were before. Maybe more so now. And also, I guess I have a question for Kevin, which is, in order for the candidates to be given an opportunity to look at the electronic version of the ballot, is that something that the state has to let us do, or is that something that we as a board can decide to do, or is that something that requires a change to state law?
It's something the local board can do. It's not required under state law, but obviously, given what has occurred, it probably would be something for the board to consider for the general.
I would like to move that we do that in the general, give all candidates the opportunity to review the electronic versions of the ballot when we give them the opportunity to view the paper versions of the ballot.
Okay, you're making the motion, David, right?
I am.
Yeah.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
Yeah, you second, no more discussion, that's it. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nay, no. Kevin, would you please prepare a letter from
Yes.
board to state board?
I will.
Thank you, David. We will do that. I send it to all of you guys.
Okay, so as far as what we're doing now, as opposed to the general election and future elections, because I guess I should have made clear, I'm pretty sure that my colleagues would all agree with this. When I said that we do it for the general election, I wasn't suggesting we do it only for this general election. It's from now on.
Oh, no, yes,
So
yes, of course, yes, yes.
But as far as what we're doing now, we're gonna have signs at all the polling places. I'm assuming we're gonna have signs at all the election day polling places as well. And then we're going to have daily reminders of our judges about the instructions that they are supposed to give the voters. Do I have that correct?
Yes, okay, so
Yes,
we will, yes. So,
Okay, I don't know if I've left anything out that we've said we were going to do. I think those are good measures. I wish we could change the software. But I think that's about as much as our local board can do at the moment.
right.
Social media.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and you all now, when can we expect to hear from staff about what the social media plans are?
Well, I'll follow up with Kevin and with Alberto after this meeting, and we'll come up with something and let you all know what we can draft up.
It would be great if we could get a report on that sometime this evening. That would be awesome.
Not this evening.
Well, I told you what I thought. If you think that the social media can wait, I mean, we all know that as we get closer to the end of early voting, we get more early voters.
I'll
So-
hop on this issue after the meeting and we'll work something out as quickly as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other? All right, then, thank you. Kevin would prepare the letter. So, under new business, we already talked about early voting. Do we have any other thing concern about the early voting? Anybody remember anything? All right, then.
Madam President, I have one
Yes.
issue.
Right.
Wait. Madam President, are you saying, are you asking whether we have anything else to say about early voting at all?
Yes. Yes,
I think Alan has his hand up.
Alan, I just saw that. Yes, Alan.
Yeah, a number of things. You've seen one of my reports I sent by email the other day, and there's some additional things I've picked up on my visits to the early voting centers. I'll tell you about some which I have concerns about. On Friday, July 8, when I went to the Nancy Dasick Rec Center, Alex, the chief judge there, told me that there were disputes with the signs outside. He said a Republican electioneer was upset the Democratic signs were in a better position. And he pointed out, however, it's a first come, first served basis. Later, the Republican electioneer tried to move the Democratic signs, but Alex pointed out he shouldn't do that because it's first come, first served, and all was quiet after that. Another issue was the notices to voters of different languages. I saw a packet of 3. Amharic was the first. Second was simplified Chinese notice. The third was traditional Chinese. Jessica Chi, who was a Mandarin-speaking judge, young woman, found that the simplified Chinese notice not only had some Korean characters on it, which I could tell they were Korean. I can't read that. I could tell they were Korean. It also contained, she said incorrectly, some traditional Chinese characters. And I advised Alice and Janet and Roberto about it. And Roberto was looking into this mistake on this document, which came from the SBE. Judges want us to make sure voters know how to check to see if their ballots are in the mail before they go to vote. The biggest type of provisional ballots that we've seen are cast by voters who requested mail-in ballots but say they didn't get them yet. Some are voters who actually did not receive the mail-in ballots. Some are people who changed their minds about how they want to vote. I saw a woman, for example, at Silver Spring yesterday, and she realized that she was have to file a provisional ballot because she had received her mail-in ballot, and then she was thinking about going to vote in person, and then she realized that's got to go in the provisional ballot. She realized that'll be counted later, but if she puts it in the mail right now, it'll be counted sooner. So she felt better about that. Potomac, I went to on July 8th. Very, very good center. Another one, they're always very good. One of the questions that came up there was, can the SBE on its software time the thank you for voting statement on the scanner to last longer? It goes very, very fast. I tell you, it goes just like that, quick. Voters want to make sure their votes are captured. Sometimes the judge who's at the scanner will say, look, and see how many are on there who voted already before you cast your ballot. Okay, put it in. Okay, see how it just went up by 1? That shows your ballot is in the scanner. Another idea was to promote half-day shifts for more judges. Some, of course, are doing this. You get more older judges who can do half days. Now at Potomac, someone, not the center manager, moved the electioneering cones far away from the entrance to the rec center up to the curb. As a result, electioneers had to campaign in the street. I compared my photo of the signs with the photo that Allison sent us before the early voting. I saw that some of these were 10 to 15 feet further away from the building where they should be. I consulted with Kevin. Kevin advised Allison about the mistake, and she contacted the center manager, said he didn't move them away from the building. On Saturday, when David visited Potomac, he saw that the cones were still up to the curb. David consulted with Kevin and Allison, and then with the center manager and the chief judges. As a result, the cones were moved back to maintain a clear, no electioneering path from the parking lot and the handicap parking to the drop box in the front door. This would also allow more electioneering on the sidewalk. Before that, people were campaigning in the street. That wasn't very good for either party or anybody. It was not safe. Anyway, the change in the cones was well received by both Republican and Democratic electioneers. Silver Spring, July 10. Victor Robbins is terrific. One of the things he suggested is more stanchions. He loaned some of his own stanchions there to help guide voters on where to go. Let me tell you about a provisional ballot voter that he handled with skill and diplomacy. There was a man who may have been a veteran. He came up in a wheelchair. He was uncouth. He was using profanity. He was even using racist statements and all. He was cursing at the provisional judges. He was not a very happy camper. Victor exercised a great deal of compassion. He calmed the man down, and the man filled out the form, and he got help with that to put it in there. And then Victor, as the man was signing the provisional ballot papers, I saw Victor and another judge move a table out of the way so this voter could put his wheelchair back to where in the corner, and he could cast his vote there in privacy. Well, he had some difficulty with his fingers. He was had strokes or something, and so Victor anticipated he needed some help. So Victor filled out an assistance form, and Victor, another judge, helped him actually vote what he wanted. He was a happy camper when he left there. Victor walked him out, not in a nasty way, but just walked with him while he was in the wheelchair, walked with him to the elevator and down and even onto the street. I thought he was amazing. White Oak, July 10. There was a confusing issue with the critical item pickup. The center had one black pouch, which was where you put in these critical items, and they had this one. It was picked up on day 3, but wasn't replaced. And it's also there are different checklists. There are different critical items checklists. Early voting center has one checklist. The runner has a different one. You might want to see by making sure they're the same, and also in the same sequence of things for the runner to pick up. Also, there's a debate over what day to put at the top. You put the current day or the day before, because the runner is picking up things from the day before. And then I've seen this before also. Somebody mentioned this last week. The font size in the sample ballot. I know that the state party puts them on there. The font size is too small even for a judge. Something has to be done about that. At Praisner, I was at Praisner yesterday. Also very well run. They changed, the setup there. It's working out pretty well, given the fact we have very few voters. How few? I mean, like, I think that at Mid-County, it took to 5 o'clock to get to 100. At Bauer Drive, it took to 6 o'clock to get to 100. People are not coming out for early voting. We assume that they're voting by mail. But at Praisner, one of the judges suggested giving center managers a stipend to use for food for judges who come in at 6 a.m. and stay till about 9. They could peel off at breaks when things were quiet, eat pizza, whatever it is, in a break room. But all in all, the judges I saw are doing a great job. They all deserve round of applause.
Thank you. David, your hand is up.
Yes, it is. Thank you. I have a couple of comments about early voting and perhaps a couple of questions. First, I want to thank Alan for pointing out the issues with the electioneering line at Potomac, but I want to modify what he said in one fashion. It's not just that we had electioneers in the street, we had electioneers in the swamp, because when it was raining on Saturday, there were literally electioneers who had to stand in a grassy area in the rain and we were able to get them onto dry territory, onto the sidewalk. And I was very happy to be able to assist with that in conjunction with Alan and Kevin and Allison. So thank you all for helping with that. I also want to agree with Alan about the excellent work of Victor Robbins at Silver Spring. Silver Spring had quite a few challenges this time. They started off upstairs. They had a wedding that was taking place on Saturday night. I believe another party on Friday night, a craft fair on Sunday afternoon, and a move last night from the upstairs rooms to the Great Hall downstairs. And we knew that our staff was amazing, but their ability to do all of that. Allison, if you happen to be able to name, there were 4 people, I believe, who were there from the IT staff. I know that moving things in the middle of early voting is not what we typically do. But I was wondering if we could name them in order to give them credit for their excellent work on Sunday evening in getting that set up for today.
That wasn't just a Silver Spring, the staff had. I was in Nancy Dasik, and the gentleman, when I was walking, he said, "Can I come with you and show me where it is?" And then suddenly we lost him because he couldn't walk and he wasn't a wheelchair. So this young lady, one of the judges, went to the front desk and get the wheelchair and pulled this gentleman to the voting, and he could vote. And he thanks everybody. So it's not only one center. So many of these centers, they're helpful.
Right, but I was pointing out the one center because of the unique problems that were in that center, all of which were caused by the election being postponed, which of course had a number of people who had signed up to do things before there was an election scheduled on that day. But I agree with you, Nahid, that we have excellent staff all over the county. I do have a question for you, Nahid. It came up that I understand that you visited some of the early voting sites with our esteemed former board president, no longer on the board, Mary Ann Keefe. I did hear that you were introduced as board members in one of the early voting sites and that nobody corrected the fact that Mary Ann was no longer on the board.
No, she had a letter from the chairman of a Democratic Central Committee that she's a poll watcher.
I'm aware of the fact that she had that letter.
Yeah, she had that one. She will show to everybody.
No, I know. But I understand that you guys were introduced to the poll workers in Silver Spring as here are 2 board members.
No. I don't remember that.
Oh, okay. Well, I heard that from a very reliable place.
Victor was there. I worked with Victor for a long time. He introduced me. Mary Ann will do her job as a poll watcher.
Okay, so just curious, have you ever been to the early voting sites with a Democratic poll watcher before?
Yes, I have seen poll watcher.
No, not what you've seen. As I understand it, you guys went there together to all the early voting sites.
No, it's not a crime.
No, it's not a crime. It's just very unusual.
No.
Usually, board members may go to places together, but in this instance, I mean, I haven't heard of a Democratic poll watcher who gets to visit the early voting centers with the president of the board of the other party or of the same party, for that matter.
We were not walking hand by hand or hugging each other. She will go her way, I will go my way, and we just carpooling together. Anything illegal about that.
I see. You were carpooling. How many early voting sites did you visit?
And I don't remember because I visited since I started so many polling places.
Okay, well, I'll just say for the record.
I don't owe you an explanation.
No, you don't.
Break the law, and she will go and do her business.
You did not.
I will do my business.
You did not break the law, to my knowledge. I agree.
Then why are you wasting our time and talking?
Because it's very unusual.
Okay, then I'm an unusual person.
Well, you are indeed, Nahid. But let me finish my sentence, please. My concern is as follows. You have 6 colleagues on the board. To my knowledge, none of the 3 Democrats were invited to our board were invited to see the early voting sites with you. You chose to do that with a.
She's
you-
a friend. She asked me, and I got this letter. I'm going to go to these places. Can I carpool with you? I said, sure. She's a friend.
Well,
She didn't
I'm
do anything illegal. She was just go and show her paper, and I'm, as usual, I'm a problem solver. I will go and do my job.
well. I will say that there are election judges in Silver Spring who were left with the impression that Mary Ann Keefe is a current member of the Board of Elections. And please let me finish. And that she was introduced in that fashion, that you did not contradict it. And what I
don't
want
even
to.
remember anybody said that, because if they
Okay.
said that, it's because we were not together. So I was doing my work and she was doing her work.
Okay,
I don't
well,
believe
I will just point.
Victor knew Marianne, and so many people in
Of,
Civic knew her.
of course, lots of people know Mary Ann,
Okay,
and
then.
I've known Mary Ann for 30 years.
Why?
But that doesn't change the fact that it is, I'm not aware of any other Democratic Party poll worker in history
Yes,
who has,
Okay, then.
excuse me, I
No,
have the
because
floor.
you're insulting me, and I do not like that.
I'm sorry you don't like it. You've
Yes.
insulted me for 10 years on a regular basis. I would like to finish my point, and I am going to finish my point. And here's my point. I'm not, it is not illegal for Mary Ann with a poll watcher certificate to be a poll watcher. The role of poll watcher and the role of board member is different. It is illegal if someone says that they are election official and they are not. I am not suggesting that happened, but I am suggesting that she was introduced as a board member and that no one else corrected that. And I think that is problematic. I can tell you that the Democratic members of the board would be happy to work with you in going to early voting sites. And it may not be illegal. It is definitely unusual. And I would just say, and of course I would also add, I would ask my Republican colleagues, how would you feel if I went to all the early voting sites with a Republican poll watcher and did not tell you? And I can tell you that I would not do that. If I were going to the early voting sites with a Republican poll watcher, I would be telling you that I did that.
Alex, go ahead.
Well, Madam President, let me suggest this is a little bit of a different situation. I think if my friend, our worthy secretary, were to go to early voting sites with Mr. Shalek, assuming he was not a candidate, I would not have a problem with that. But I think that Mrs. Keefe was a former president of this board and had been on the board for many years. That's not quite the same situation of just any ordinary Democrat Party poll watcher. But that being said, if my friend knows who made the introduction and which election judges were misled, then we should know that.
Yes, exactly. But that's the end of
The-
the story.
the-
My husband was the driver, actually.
Well,
Driver, driving
the introduction was made by Mr. Robbins, who did not know that, I assume he didn't know that Mary Ann was no longer on the board. But my understanding is that he made the introduction, and nobody that I've spoken with had heard that any correction being made.
And Mr. Robbins is who now?
He's the center manager in Silver Spring.
And which election judges were, according to the report you had, were misled?
I'm not going to say that. Come on, Alex. You don't expect me to say in a public meeting, who is sitting in the audience telling me what's happening? No, I'm not doing that. All I'm saying to you is that that Nahid and Marianne were both introduced as board members. It's of course accurate for Nahid. It is not accurate for Marianne. I disagree with you in saying that that we have a special rule for former presidents of the board.
I didn't say that.
You know,
I did not say that. I just said that it's not the same situation, and I think it may be unusual, but it's not problematic in my view.
okay, well, you're entitled to your view. I certainly think it's problematic. Not the fact that she goes, the fact that she's introduced as a board member and nobody corrects it. That to me, that was the point at which I decided to say something, was when I heard that.
Well, okay, I understand, but I would say to my friend that, Mrs. Joseme says she does not recall that being introduced, Mrs. Keefe being introduced that way. So I guess, I don't know, I wasn't there. We don't know who said what to who.
Madam
But,
President.
I don't think we should, spend a lot more time talking about this, but your point has been taken and, there we have it.
Okay, thank you.
Madam
Yeah,
President,
next session.
I'm not
Next.
sure if there are other board members who have other comments that they'd like to make about early voting, but I do have an issue that I would like to raise. I don't know if you want me to raise it now.
There are two board members with their hands up.
Okay, fine.
Diane,
I think Alan was first.
Alan, okay,
Okay,
whatever.
I was gonna yield to you, but
Go ahead, Alan.
Mine's going to be quick, but
okay, I'll be quick. Yeah, it is a very curious situation. And when I was in Silver Spring, one of the chief judges there, or I guess it was a chief judge, remarked to me, he said, Marianne Keefe came, I don't know, yesterday, whatever he said, came with the president. And he thought it was an unusual situation because I think he realized that Marianne Keefe was not on the board any longer. It was a curious situation. I yield to gentlewoman from Saw Road.
thank you. Just as a practical matter, because I've trained a lot of poll watchers in my many years, it sounds like Marianne had her certificate, her poll watching certificate, and I know the first thing you need to do when you get there is present your credential to the chief judges and sign in. So if anybody was mistaken about who she was, I would just hope that they could have referred to the sign-in sheet and that might have clarified things. I'm not taking up my side on, I don't have a pejorative comment on this. I'm just stating as a practical matter for those who don't know, when you go in as a poll watcher, you sign out in the public who don't know this. You present your credential, you sign in, and it would have been clearly identified her correct status at that point. Just practical matter to point out.
Okay, anybody else? Next.
I have a matter that I wanted to bring before the board as far as early voting is concerned, and I've discussed this with several of you, which is the storing of campaign materials overnight at the early voting locations. And having had a letter go out to the candidates over my signature that then causes the questions to come to me about what's allowed and what's not allowed and where are we going to store it and who are we handing it off to it. While we have historically maintained a posture that we do not take custody of campaign materials that are stored overnight at the early voting locations, but we do put ourselves in a central position of being the sharers of this information. And the sort of connectors between the campaign and the facility managers at these sites. It puts our staff in a very untenable situation. And so what I would like to suggest to the board is that you appoint I'm thinking maybe the best way to do it is with a committee, but that you would appoint some individuals to work with us and the staff to develop a set of guidelines. I think we really can't just keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result, where we have confusion every early voting on who they're allowed to give their materials to. If they can't find the facility manager, who do they come to? Of course, they come to our poll workers. They come to our election judges there in the facility, often bearing campaign materials in hand, trying to find a place to store it. It makes for a very awkward situation for our workers who have been told not to touch it, and yet they're in the situation of trying to referee and kind of direct traffic on where to go. So what I'd like to do is I would like us to work as a board, you to work as a board, to come up with a set of guidelines and practices for what we can accommodate, how we can accommodate the overnight storage of campaign materials at early voting, and really how that's going to work. The example that came up, we had a situation where it was 15 minutes before the polls were supposed to open, and there were some campaign materials apparently still stored in an entryway to one of our early voting sites. And the center manager was not clear what to do. Do they evict these materials and go put them outside the electioneering line? Do they, find a closet to put them in? Are campaigns allowed to store their materials there until, 6:59 a.m.? Or do we keep them in a closet? Do we allow these materials to be stored in an entryway as long as it's before and after hours? These are really somewhat unsettled questions. And so I would like to have a committee of the board set up to work with the staff and help us come up with some guidelines for how to handle this.
I think that's reasonable, and I'm happy to volunteer for it.
Madam President, I'll let
Yeah.
you.
Okay. Next.
So,
go ahead.
so Ami had just indicated that she would be happy to volunteer to serve on a committee to work on the overnight storage of campaign materials at the early voting sites. I don't know if you want to appoint a committee of one member of each party.
If we could, on our side, I think, give us an opportunity to talk amongst ourselves, but we would certainly be happy to have one of us serve with Ami, and we very much appreciate that.
I mean, my view is I've been a candidate and I'm now on the board, so I can see this from both sides.
Mhm.
And perhaps I can help come up with some reasonable guidelines.
Okay, Alan, do you want to serve on this committee?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay,
Okay, thank you, Alan.
okay.
Okay, Ami and Alan, you do that. Just make a note. That's about all of it.
If you,
What did I
Okay,
make?
I have one more question, Madam President. I just wanted to ask Alison if we have an answer to the question that Delegate Wilkins asked, I believe. I think she wanted to know if we have any data on the percentage of voters thus far who use the ballot marking device compared to using paper.
Do you have it?
I can't provide that information right now. The way that I would collect the information would be to physically go to each device and look that up on the screen. Once we are through early voting, then I'll be able to get that information centrally, and I'll be able to provide some data reporting on it.
Would it be possible to get that information after early voting, but before we get to election day? Or is that something that, I mean, is that a long or a short process?
Yeah, because once we lock those machines up after early voting, we cannot open them until election day.
Yeah.
It's either
Let me
do it now or you can't do it.
Let me check on that. I can't pull it up in order to extract data from them, but I'm thinking that we might have a form out there at the polls that we can gather the information from. So let me check on that. I believe that I can get that information to you before election day, but I will follow up.
Okay, I think it'll be useful for our letter to the state on that subject to have that data, no matter what it says. But I think it would be helpful to get that to her. Thank you.
Next.
There are two more hands up, Naheed, Diane and Alan.
Excuse me? Can you raise your hand that I can see you're talking, because you don't know what's happening?
That was Elise talking.
That was Elise.
Elise was just pointing out that Diane and Alan have their hands up.
Oh, for what? Diane, go ahead.
Oh, boy. Alan, I think you beat me again because you're.
No, I yielded.
Okay, this time I'll go. I don't want to take up.
She lives.
I just want to go on the record early and often, as long as we're talking about how many people use the ballot marking versus paper. And I know that if there's a heavy weight with people using the ballot marking, that will certainly help us when we try to pressure the State Board of Elections to do the upgrade that they really absolutely have no excuse for not doing. But I want to, people say never, but I do want to say I don't ever want to see the disuse of a paper ballot. Just wanted to put that out there early. Thank you.
Okay, Alan, go ahead.
Yeah, I have two questions for Allison. On this agenda, the State Board of Elections, is there anything further from the State Board about allowing us to count start the canvass earlier? That's the first question.
No, there's not.
All right, okay. Number two, a campaigner want to know whether it's possible to have the precinct totals in early voting by precinct, by precinct. I think that's probably real early. The state board probably hasn't figured that out yet, have they? Someone wants to know like where the early voting votes coming from.
Okay.
But it's not by precinct, I don't think. It's just by center, by
It's
center.
by early voting center.
Yeah, but not by precinct. We don't have turnout by
fine.
precinct. I don't
It's
believe.
too early for that, I thought.
Right, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Not that I'm aware of. When we have that information available, we'll
Thank-
share.
Okay, vote by mail. Boris. Okay, you want to be in TV?
My name is Boris Rajkovic. I'm manager of water services. I'll talk a bit about vote by mail today, and I'll start by answering two questions that Delegate Wilkins raised. First question is about deadlines. Tomorrow is the deadline for us to receive any request for the vote by mail to be mailed to the voters. Friday is the deadline for us to receive, again, any request for web delivery of vote by mail. Something that's important here to remind everyone is that postmark date does not apply for this deadline. And the second issue that Delegate Wilkins raised is number of ballots that were sent to Montgomery County voters that have not been returned to the Board of Elections yet. I didn't manage to put today's number in, but in total, we have around 85,000 ballots that are still with our voters and have not been returned to the Board of Elections.
Oh,
Can you repeat that number again, please?
85,000.
Oh, 80.
Wow,
Wow,
that's 55.
So 85,000 have been sent to voters, but not yet returned.
No, as of today, there is almost 110,000 ballots sent to the voters, and we have a bit over 20,000 in the building. The difference is still with our voters in the county.
Wow.
What we are expecting and what we are prepping for is huge influx of vote by mail ballots, either through mail or through drop boxes in the run-up to the election day.
Now, may I ask, is it correct that if it's not, it must be deposited in a Dropbox by 8 p.m. on July 19th, or it must be postmarked by July 19th in order for it to be counted?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Do we have any information there? I've been getting calls and texts for people who still have not received their ballot yet, even though they requested them by mail. Do we have any sense of how many are still out there, requests that have not been, people haven't gotten their ballot yet, been mailed?
There are two different aspects of the question. One, yes, there are people out there who call us daily, telling us that they requested their ballots and they have not received it. What we can do on our end, we can verify in our system if we have processed the application, if the state has pulled the data, and if the state has forwarded the data to the mail vendor, which is company that mails all the vote by mail ballots for the state of Maryland. To which extent that ballot, we can do the tracking if it has reached the destination of the voter. I provided a list of 13 voters to USPS and the state that all fall on the same date, 13th of June. And those 13 voters are being investigated by both USPS, State Board of Elections, and the mail vendor. Because there's a clear pattern established on that day.
Okay, so should I recommend that the voter reach out to you or reach out okay,
Absolutely. Any voter who has requested a vote by mail, has not received one, they should call the Board of Elections.
okay,
We will record the information and do the research on our part.
okay.
Hey, Boris, they have an option not just to call, I gather. They can email you as well?
That's correct. They can email to absentee@montgomerycountymd.gov.
Okay, so it's an email to absentee@montgomerycountymd.gov. And what's the phone number they should use to call you?
240-777-8550. That's the
And that-
absentee section.
And that's to the absentee section, which is another
Vote by
name.
mail. It's
Right.
left over. from
It's
vote by
now,
mail.
it's now called the vote by mail section. And when you said that there's a pattern with those June 13th voters, you're saying that they all requested at the same time? Or,
The tracking system shows that all were scanned by the USPS on 12th and delivered on 13th. That's how we identify the pattern. Like sent out date, scan date, delivery date.
so I'm sorry, so what was the sent out date?
It was June. If you look at our system, it's June 1st. It's the date when the state pulled. However, that's not the date when the state transferred the data to the vendor. We go by the date that was where USPS is collecting, takes over the mail from the vendor and puts it in the mail stream.
And that's June 1st?
No, that was June 9th. But June 12th was like a scan for delivery, June 13th delivered. That was the pattern. June 13th was the key date to identify all these voters.
So there was a 4-day period between when the vendor gave the ballot to the post office and the post office delivered it to the voter.
The tracking system says that ballot was delivered, but voters claim they never received one.
Can you give an estimate of how many ballots were mailed on that day so that they can get a sense of how many 13 is as a percentage?
I have to look at it.
But it's a large number, right? That's the first mail date of everything that had been entered into the system.
I believe that we are talking about almost 70,000 that was pulled. That was the first pull. So
It
every
was tens of thousands,
Yeah.
and you're talking about 13 voters.
we are
correct?
talking about 13 that every complaint that we receive from voters, we take seriously. Every complaint that develops a pattern, we escalate immediately. So we had a clear pattern in this case. This pool, something that we call pool, it's when the state picks up the data of all the processed application up to that particular date, was the first one in the year. And it was massive. So yes, it was massive for Montgomery County. It was massive for every other county in the state.
So for those 13 people, their ballots are missing?
They're in the mail, right?
For those 13 people, state, mail vendor, and USPS are looking what happened to their ballots.
Right, but that's almost a month ago that it got scanned in.
That's correct.
Is
So-
somebody informing those voters so that they have an option to either go to the polls and vote provisionally or to get another ballot?
We spoke to them on Thursday or Friday because we did a second round of phone calls just to confirm if they have not received the ballots in meanwhile. Our initial list for June 13 mailing was slightly bigger, but some of those voters who actually called and complained received their ballots in meanwhile.
Boris, I have a quick question. When the Postal Service categorizes a ballot or mail as being delivered, is that determined when it is given to the carrier, when it leaves the local and it's in the carrier's possession?
We use the tracking system that is between the vendor and USPS. So I cannot precisely answer that question. All we can do is rely on the voter ID and process in the system where both agencies, both the vendor and the USPS should feed their data in. So the system should generate and provide correct answer.
Okay, no, I get that, but we don't know what the USPS means when they say it's been delivered.
It means that hand it over to the voter, like to the household, because the following step is that
Oh,
the ballot is en route to the Board of Elections.
okay, thank you. That is a clarification.
Okay.
Okay,
I,
anything else?
Dave had a question and I did.
No, Alan was first, but I guess Boris, are you gonna have more of a presentation or you just want to answer our questions? Because I know we have many.
I can go through the whole process. I wish I had more time to prepare a proper presentation so I can put it on the display for the board. If board wishes, after the elections, I can prepare the whole presentation with the proper numbers for everything and about vote by mail process. From requesting times, maybe I can just mention that.
Yeah, if you could go through the whole process now, I think it would be very helpful because I think we are getting a lot of questions that would be answered by your doing that instead of our just kind of randomly asking you questions.
Okay, so vote by mail option, formerly known as absentee, is available to every voter in the state of Maryland, Montgomery County. Request for a vote by mail can be submitted online. You can print a copy of that request on our website. You can text the word vote to 77788. There are multiple different options. On February 1st, the State Board of Elections mailed a request form to every registered Democrat and Republican in Montgomery County. I have to tell you that before February 1st, we already have 3,000 vote by mail applications in the system from people who submitted them since 2020 general elections. From February 1st onwards, we started receiving applications for vote by mail ballots. Unaffiliated voters received their applications in the beginning of June. What's specific, maybe for Montgomery County, even though everyone was mailed a paper application to fill out and return to the Board of Elections, we have around 46% of voters who submitted their applications online. So paper was mailed out, our voters still decided to follow and submit the applications online. On those applications, our voters had the option to choose whether to vote by mail for primary only, general, both primary and general, or to be placed on something called permanent vote by mail list. As it looks as of Saturday, I believe, and I pulled the data, 63% of 110,000 processed applications is for the permanent vote by mail. So permanent vote by mail is very popular option for Montgomery County voters. This option is, even though the number of requests that we received this time is huge, it kept us busy. I believe it will help us down the road because we will have all these registrations on file for the future elections. When it comes to how our voters prefer to receive their ballots, the mail is still the most popular, with almost 85% want to receive their ballots by mail. Surprisingly, our number of web delivery ballots went up to almost 15%.
Wait, can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
So when on application, when the voters decide how they would like to receive their vote by mail ballot, they can choose either mail or web, basically internet, email. And 85% of voters choose mail.
Okay.
15% chose web, which makes almost 16,000 voters for these elections, which is almost half of what we had in 2020.
Thank you.
One of the things that it was always going back and forth with our voters, and board members will remember that in 2020, total number of web delivery requests was almost 10,000 more than actually returned, because our voters changed their mind once they realized that for the web deliveries, there's a certain steps that they have to take on their own, from printing the ballots, preparing the envelopes, postmarking, and putting postmarks on and returning it. that all these web deliveries, voters can, once they print them out, they can deposit them at any of our 55 drop boxes. They can put them in the USPS mail stream at any location. Receiving and processing applications, it's something that I would like to talk a bit today, for the sheer number and the rhythm in pace in which we receive those applications up to date. Once we receive application from voters, if we are talking about mail, we have to open the envelopes, we have to date stamp those, and we have to verify every application for completeness. After that, we have to batch them, scan them in, and capture data for each single voter individually. There were spikes, there were lows for us, a number of applications that we received. I'll be very honest with the board and say that some 3 weeks ago, we were cutting hours for our temporary team members. In the week, in the run-up to the voter registration deadline, we were running really, really long days and some extreme overtime, because we received almost 10,000 records to process in a week time. So those are the highs, and those were the lows, how the incoming mail comes to the board for processing. And these kind of spikes influence our daily operational decisions. What are we focusing on? We have deadlines, we have priorities, and we have numbers of incoming records that needs to be processed daily. Another example of last Saturday was so-called the last pull by the state to process all the applications, to collect all the applications that we processed and send them to the vendor for mailing. From Saturday noon to Sunday evening, we processed 3,500 new applications. And we were supposed to mail them, hand mail them from the Board of Elections. We reached to the state, and state decided to pull them one more time by themselves. This morning, the poll took place last night. This morning we came to the office and we have another 1,000 to process. So the job is not done. Applications are still coming in, and that will be to go for till Wednesday morning. Number of once application is processed, the fact that we process applications daily doesn't mean that state pulls that data daily up, nor the state Board of Elections shares the data daily with the vendor for mailing. State functions on a schedule that is contracted agreed with the vendor. We process daily, all processed applications go into batches, and state pulls them per their schedule. When it comes to ballots go out from the vendor, voters receive those ballots, and we hope to receive those ballots in the building as soon as possible.
What is the state's schedule that you just mentioned that they have with the vendor for pulling the data? In other words, it sounds like when we get the application, we have something that we do to process it that we do fairly quickly. And then it sounds like it goes to the state before it goes to the voter.
Because MD Voters, as the voter registration data system, is the state system. So it's the state that has a contract with the vendor that does the mailing for the state vote by mail ballots. All the counties, all jurisdictions feed their applications to the state, and state provides them to the vendor through one contract.
But so what is the typical amount of time between when you send the data to the state and the state sends the data to the vendor?
The state pulls, depending on the schedule, it's twice a week. There were weeks that they pulled once after the first big pull, but they were pulling like twice a week.
Okay.
So when it comes to ballots that were returned to us, we, as of yesterday, when I pulled the numbers, I'm sorry, I didn't manage to do it this morning. we had a bit over 20,000 ballots, envelopes in the building. Almost 14,000 of them came through the mail system, and almost 6,000 through the drop boxes. We have received, I would say by now, some 12 to 13,000 in the system. I'm talking about voters who have received message or will receive a message that their vote by mail ballot envelope is received. The problem for us, I know it might sound a bit counterintuitive here, but we need more ballots to do receiving faster. And the reason is very simple. We are sorting incoming ballots by 258 precincts. So in 2020, if you would take 300 ballots, you would batch them 3 times 100 and you'll be done. Open a batch, scan 100 in, close the batch. I did a test on Saturday. I pulled 300 envelopes that were returned. They were assigned to 37 different batches. That means that I have to locate 37 precinct batches, open each once individually, and put the ballots in. If our numbers increase, if voter return ballots to us, it will be much faster because number of ballots per precinct style will grow, and we will run batches much faster.
How many ballots in a batch?
Because it's a primary and the precinct level, we do 50.
Okay.
For the 2020 general, we were running 100 because we were running congressional.
And while you're waiting to get the balance of your 50, the voters are not being told that the ballot has been received because you don't do that until you have your batch, or are they getting the message that the ballot's been received?
So, the moment we scan a single ballot in the batch, the voter gets the message. So it doesn't matter whether a batch has 1, 17, or 50 ballots in it. The voter whose barcode was scanned gets the message. It's on our end that we would like to complete 50 batches of 50, print the reports, and start the prep for canvas.
Okay, but you said, Boris, that there are roughly 20,000 that are in the building.
That's correct.
And roughly 13,000 that are in the system.
That's correct.
So the 7,000 difference that are in the building but not yet recorded as received, what stage of the process are they in?
Those 7,000, they are our backlog, and I believe that we'll be caught up completely this week. As I said, the number of applications that we received in the last week is something that we didn't expect. We had to prioritize whether to process applications and enable voters to get their ballot, or to allocate working hours, team members, to receiving already ballots sent to us by the voters. Our priority is to process any application that's timely. And I try to maybe paint a proper picture. Final pool was Saturday noon. Sunday evening, we called the state to organize one more final pool for Montgomery County because we processed another 3,500 applications in a day and a half. And this morning, last night when I went home, we were on 0. This morning, we were on 1,000 again. And our priority, because the deadline is tomorrow, is to get those applications processed and start mailing ballots from the house, because that's our obligation after the final pool from the state.
Okay, but in the meantime, there are voters out there who have sent their ballot back and don't realize that you have it. And are deciding whether, and if they, they're trying to figure out whether they need to have a backup plan. And I understand from my own past experience that you guys are very good at collecting the ballots, and both from drop boxes and the postal service, but they don't necessarily know that because they haven't gotten a notice that happens. And then they may come to the polls and vote provisionally, which of course is extra work for them and for us. Is there any way to speed up the process for those ballots, the 7,000, in order to encourage some of those voters not to come vote provisionally if they don't have to?
I would like to have a number of provisionals, like every board member, as low as possible, especially for the absentee reason. We are running numbers daily of incoming things, and we are assigning tasks and priorities based on those numbers. I believe so. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday morning, we will have all the applications that were submitted timely. For voters to receive their vote by mail ballots by election day, we have to hand prepare the envelopes, put proper ballot style ballots in them, and mail them out. That will be priority. In the same time, we will try to receive as many ballots as possible. But again, we are trying to meet every possible task that we have at hand, but the numbers do dictate priorities and deadlines in particular.
Are there any extra personnel that are available to assist you with this from other parts of the organization, or is there anything board members can do to assist you?
At this point, as I said, I believe that we will be caught up by the end of this week. What our problem is, or where our thinking goes, and we already have internal discussions here. What if our voters return all vote by mail ballots on the election day or day before? That means that we will be overwhelmed with some 30 to 40,000 ballots on the election day to jump on. I can tell you right now that we created a supplemental list of our team members who are currently assigned at early voting centers, will be assigned to different polling day, election day locations, but who will be able to work with us on receiving those ballots if they really come that close, if they are really returned to us that close to the election day.
But part of what I'm asking, when you say that you're going to be caught up this week, traditionally Thursday, the last day of early voting, is by far the day that most people who go to early voting. And if someone does not want to vote on election day, and there are some people who either do not want to or can't for whatever reason, they may be deciding on Thursday whether they need to come and vote in person or whether we've received their ballot. And I guess, that's why I'm asking whether you have any alternative, if there's any possible way. I realize you have a lot you have to do, and I don't disagree with your priorities. It just seems like sometimes we have to do more than one thing at once. And if there's a way to have more people working on it, I would think that would be preferable.
We had experience of 2020 when we had different rooms stacked with tables and computers, and we managed to process a huge volume of vote by mail ballots with the support of our reg department. Since 2020, those rooms were repurposed because new equipment moved in. So bringing new people and not having a workspace for them, it's not necessarily a solution for us. Using the team members that we have assigned to different tasks, bringing them on when their tasks are completed, is the way, in my view at least, to way forward. I understand that there will be voters who will not receive a message that their ballot was received before the last day of early voting. We might be caught up by them, but let's assume that will be the case. I do apologize for that, but we are doing our best. As I said, priority is to process applications so people actually receive the ballot by the election day. And then we will take care of those who return their ballots on time.
Okay, further questions?
Yeah, I had some questions. If David's finished.
I'm not finished, but I'll go after you, Alan. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Boris, explain the role of Taylor, the vendor hired by the state, and tell us what they're doing and what they're doing well or not well.
It's very hard for me to explain the role of a vendor that I'm not privy to the contract that state has with it. I know the state has a contract with a vendor called Taylor to produce, to mail out all the vote by mail ballots to every jurisdiction in the state of Maryland. That is the extent of my knowledge. And this is not, I believe 2020 it was Taylor as well. So this is the same vendor that was used in 2020 when we had a huge volume as well.
And isn't it true that Taylor sent duplicate ballots to what, 700 or 800 Montgomery County voters?
It was the case that Taylor made a mistake and sent by mistake second ballot to 791 voters in the state in Montgomery County. Each of those voters have received a letter from the state explaining what happened and what is the course of action, whether returning the first, second, or whatever voter prefers.
What did happen? How did that happen?
I believe that when they were, to my limited knowledge and my limited understanding, the only way is that when they were passing the batches, that the one batch was not clear. So they just run one batch twice. It's literally, they put the same batch twice in the process. That generated 2 ballots for those 791 voters.
They must be beeped on their end the same way that you beep when they come in to us.
I cannot talk about that. For us, I know that we cannot receive 2 ballots, whichever way they come for. We can only receive one. I know that if we issue a second ballot for you, the first barcode gets canceled. I know if I try to scan the voided barcode, my whole screen goes red, so I cannot beat that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other question?
Yes, Madam President. I have a few. Boris, one of the things that I heard from one of our board observers is that there's a volume of people who requested their permanent mail-in ballot request months ago and still have not received their ballots. And I guess my question for you is, do you have any sense as to what might cause that, or are there multiple causes, and what should they do? Because it seems like if they requested it a long time ago and they want to be on the permanent list, I mean, again, I suppose they can call 240-777-8550, or they can email you at absentee@montgomerycountymd.gov. But they heard this from more than one voter in this circumstance.
Absolutely. The first course of action for all of them is to reach out to Montgomery County Board of Elections. If, again, as I said, we are looking for the mail date of June 13th. So we are looking back. We are trying to identify if there is any voter who has not received in systematic manner a ballot, vote by mail ballot so far.
Are you saying that if someone hasn't received their ballot, there's a good chance it was mailed on that date?
I don't know. I have to check. So that's why we say everyone has to call in, so we can literally track when we receive the application, when we process the application, was the data captured correctly? Because if data was not captured correctly, if there was a fault, typo in the address or something, it could be a clerical error. So each case has to be inquired properly. I cannot give just a blanket explanation. Therefore, just we say mail, call, we will look into everything.
Okay. I also heard of a number of instances of married couples who sent their applications at the same time, and one received a ballot and one received a ballot much later. And they're at the same address, they applied at the same time. Do we have any explanation for how that happens?
There are, from phone calls that we receive, the cases that I review, there are multiple possible explanations. Number one, if the applications were received at the same time, they were bundled up by USPS, they were rebundled by us. It's very possible that married couple applications didn't stay together in the same batches. It's very possible that they were processed on different dates, which means they might have been pooled by the state on different dates. So that would be one explanation of why different dates for married couples.
You say different batches regardless of the fact that they're in the same precinct, the same home, etc.
These are applications we are talking about. Applications, okay. Precinct means nothing for us when it comes to applications itself.
Okay.
So If there was an issue with any of those voters, for example, if they provided a driving license number in a way that we cannot read properly, we have to call those voters. That will put them back in the processing as well. Of course, on the end, there's always a possibility that there was delay and that there was a cutoff batch on the printing side or something similar. We had a phone calls from married couples, where one spouse requested by mail, the other spouse requested by web. Those will always come on different times,
right?
As it gets. We cannot guarantee web and mail delivery in the same time.
No, sure. Okay, so the next question that I've gotten is a number of people who've said that their web delivery ballots had not been received as much as a week after their request. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about, to the extent that that process is different. I know one of the issues that we've had with web delivery ballots in the past is that the return address is not always intuitive, that you know what it is. And you can tell me if I have this correct. As I understand it, the return address for an email that links you to your web delivery ballot is SBE, a number, at maryland.gov. But I guess one of the issues, I guess, is spam folders. And but for people who've checked their spam folders, for people who've looked for the right address and they haven't received their web delivery request, if a week has gone by, any idea as to what happens and what they should do?
When it comes to web deliveries, they go directly from the state. And the best thing to do is literally to call us so we can escalate it to our contact person at the State Board of Elections, because they can follow it on their end. Yes, in many instances, web deliveries end up in the spam folders of our voters. In many instances, our voters clear their spam before opening these. So it's possible that the state has a trace on their end that ballot went out, but voter cannot see it on their screen. I'm not saying that it's not possible to have a mistake on any other side, state included. I'm just saying, please call us. We will escalate to the state. We can fix it because it's traceable.
And when you say call us, they could email you as well.
Absolutely, the same way. Whether it's mail, whether it's web, it's the same. For us, it's a ballot is a ballot.
Okay. Do you plan to talk separately about the canvas, or is this the time to ask questions about that as well?
Canvas?
Laura, do you want to finish out questions about vote by mail?
I'm fine to finish this first. If that's
Okay, that's fine. I'll save canvas questions. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, we're sharing the computer. And we are charging the computer.
Keep that plugged in while we have you.
Yeah, we plugged it in. Canvas update. You want to talk about it?
Sure. I think the thing to update the board on is that we have solidified our plan to use Montgomery College's Germantown campus. I know there was some discussion and there was some exploration here by staff of alternative sites. But really the Montgomery College Germantown campus is spec'd out. We're ready to go with it. And I think perhaps most importantly, Montgomery College gave us a 90% discount on the use of the space. And so we were quite happy and quite grateful for that. And so we are able to move ahead with the plan that we have in place. I do not know what questions the board has about the canvas at this point. We have circulated a tentative agenda for the board to sign up. And I know that you were all working directly with our attorney, with Kevin Karpinski, on your availability for the canvas. I think for those who are watching this meeting from the public, the important thing for you to know is that we do not have the legal authority to begin opening any of the envelopes containing any of those vote by mail ballots until the Thursday after Election Day. That process begins at 10 a.m. on the Thursday after Election Day. And the process involves ballots in their envelopes. First, the outside of the envelope being reviewed by bipartisan team of election judges to make sure that it meets the same sufficiency standard that our staff has previously reviewed those ballot envelopes for. But then it also involves our election judges confirming the presence of the signature, confirming the postmark on the outside of the envelope. And then that is also the time when we open the envelopes and we physically remove the ballots from the envelopes. Then our bipartisan teams of election judges do a really quick review of those ballots. They are looking for any information on the ballot. For example, if a voter has written a note, if a voter has made a circle, drawn an arrow, those are special situations where it falls to the bipartisan election judges, and then it ultimately falls to our board, our attorney, our staff in giving guidance to make sure that each ballot is counted per the voter's intent according to the legal standard under the guidance of our attorney. That process begins the Thursday after Election Day. Again, it is something that we will be doing in person at the Bioscience Education Building at Montgomery College's Germantown campus. It is open to the public, and we will also be live streaming the event. We will have a significant volume of these to go through. We will be working with the board members between the volume that we have, between the availability of our board members to have a quorum for that, so that we will not be canvassing every day, but we will be canvassing many days. I expect at this point that it will probably be at some point in the first week of August when we will finish the vast majority of the work involved with that. But then we have a fair amount of work after we complete our opening of the envelopes and preparing the ballots for scanning, where we have a post-election audit, a pre-certification post-election audit to complete, so that we do not intend to certify the outcome of the election until we have made sure that all of our counts reconcile and that the process has been conducted properly. And so I anticipate at this point that we will be certifying the outcome of the election on or before August 12th. I don't know what questions the board may have or further information either our attorney or Boris, our division chief, would like to share on that. I do see Alex's hand up.
Yes, Alex, go ahead.
Thank you. Allison, are you still accepting volunteers for the canvas? And if so, do they need to commit to specific hours for the entire block of days, or how are you doing?
I will defer to Boris, whose team is handling that.
So we reached out to a number of people who have signed previously to serve in canvas. We would like to see number of people interested to serve during canvas go up. Anyone who is interested should send us an email with their basic information and contact numbers. We will reach out to them, provide them with the schedule, ask them if they will be available to serve full day or half day throughout the canvas period that we have in mind. For us, we have to meet two goals. One is to have sufficient number of teams, canvassers, to process all vote by mail ballots. And two, we need to have bipartisan teams. So the fact that someone is applying to serve doesn't mean that person will be called to serve, because we have to have bipartisan teams at every single table.
They have to be existing election judges.
They have to be in the system.
So this is not a request of the whole public.
Sorry?
You're not asking the entire public. This is for election judges.
They have to go through the system, or they should have gone through the system to be registered as election judges, and then we can pick it up from there.
So does that mean they have to go through the election judge training in order to serve on the canvas? Is that right?
No, they have to be in the system as election judges. They have to. We have to have their applications on file.
I see.
Because training for election judges for early voting and polling day has nothing to do with the canvas, because we don't have scanners, we don't have BMDs in canvas or anything like that. It's completely different process.
Will you accept volunteers who are registered Maryland voters but from other counties?
Again,
I don't think so.
I'm not
I,
sure.
We do, and
What?
we do have election judges, including some who are somewhat longstanding election judges for us who live in another county. We have that legal ability. It's not a huge number, but we do have some. But I think I'll pick up here and segue a little bit, although I don't want to cut off further questions that we have about the canvas.
I have a
because-
lot of questions.
Okay,
Don't
guess
segue,
I just
please.
want to interject a little bit while we're on the topic of election judges serving during the canvas to, because I am also receiving questions, individuals who have signed up in recent weeks to serve as an election judge. And much like Boris just described with the high volume of ballot requests and ballots that we are currently receiving, we similarly are receiving a very high volume of election judge applications. Unfortunately, right now, our trainers are out in the field running our early voting sites. And we have a very limited capacity to train more people during early voting. We have a number of election judge training classes after early voting ends. We will have a number of classes over the weekend before Election Day, although we are also simultaneously at that point, we have all of our chiefs need to come in for a briefing on any of the last minute changes. We have our last minute training that we need to do for our roamers. We have another of other activities that are going on at the same time involving the same manpower, the same trainers, the same support structure. And so we have a limited ability to train last minute signups. I do have, of course, individuals who have signed up previously and maybe somewhere in the queue of our election judge applicants, either pending review or who have perhaps not received information to sign up for a class yet. And so I am certainly following up on those. But I do want you to know that at this point, we are really past the point where we can really be accepting brand new applicants to serve as an election judge, because we have a backlog of applicants to be processed and to be signed up for our training classes. So we will certainly kind of reach down into the queue further if we have a vacancy in the canvas where perhaps we did not have a vacancy of somebody to serve during early voting who was interested. But where we do have a limited capacity to train and follow up on these, just so that you are aware of the process. When we receive an application, we have to review that application. The first thing we have to do is that we have to match up that application with an existing registered voter record. We do not have election judges serve who are not already registered voters. And so we need to match that application up with a voter and verify their current registration information. It is too late for us to make any changes to their voter registration at this time, to change their address, to change their party, to change any of their information, but we are able to still match their record to what we have on file. And then we will file away any changes that they want to make for future reference. But that preliminary step has to happen first, where we look at it from the voter registration standpoint, before we can then take that application and move it into the queue of applicants to get an email notification. And that email notification will give them a login, will give them a password in order to get into our election judge system. We call that EJ connection. And so anyone who is signed up to be an election judge, what they should be looking for in their email is an email message that came from election.judge@montgomerycountymd.gov that would give them their login and their password. That information, assuming that we have completed the review of their voter registration, is what they would then use to be able to sign up for their election judge training classes. And then ultimately that's the same system that they would use in order to receive their assignments and their information on service. And it is it's based on that pool of individuals that we then assign workers to work on the canvas. Now, Boris did indicate that he's open to receiving more applicants who directly contact the absentee at montgomerycountymd.gov who are specifically interested in working during the canvas, but we will need to make sure that those individuals are in our election worker system before we would be able to use them. Among other things, we need to have their payment information. so that we can pay them for their service.
Yeah, what is the payment, what is the compensation that we give to Canvas workers? Do you know?
It varies by position. It's on our website and I don't have the schedule at hand. We recently increased it slightly, so I don't want to give you wrong information.
Information is available on the website. I just don't want to be misquoted here because we went through the numbers were agreed, kind of
It's-
moved on, to be honest.
Yeah,
I have to look back.
It's at 777vote.org if you click on election workers. And I guess I will go ahead and volunteer because I have had 2 board members flag for me. Nahid, if you don't mind, I have one other thing just to volunteer, which is
Okay.
that we did have a temporary outage of the election judges were looking for some information over the weekend on their service. And yes, that is true. We did have a temporary outage. That system was up, it was live last week. And then we had a temporary outage over the weekend where some election judges were not able to access their information, but we've now gotten that resolved. We had, the system is back up, is back live. So I know I've had a couple board members contact me about that. I just want to reassure you that it was not a delay in making the information available. It was a technical issue that caused a temporary inability to access it, but it was up and it's up again. And of course, now I just interrupted you with election judge information and Boris has stepped out of the room, I think probably to get that payment information for you.
Okay.
So if there's further questions about the canvas or vote by mail, I can field them or send them back. Oh, Boris just walked back in the room, so he's here to
I have
answer vote by mail
How
questions.
much is it?
Yes. How much is it?
I think a number of us have questions.
Yeah, mine's on the judges. Excuse me, for Allison.
Why don't you go ahead, Diane?
Hi, Allison.
Okay, go ahead. Diane?
Okay,
Go ahead.
quickly. Allison, did you once say that there's some sort of a cursory background check for judges? Did I imagine that?
The background check that you're probably referring to is the Maryland criminal history investigation, the Maryland CJIS system. We do background checks, check for criminal history on our employees. And we have never done that for election judges before, but for the subset of our election judges who are assisting us with the pickup of the ballots from the drop boxes out in the field, we added the criminal history record check to the requirements for that position.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether Alan was first or David, but Alan, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, one, I want to thank Alex for raising the question about judges who want to serve on the canvas. I had some questions about that on the trail too, so I'm glad that they can apply for that. But the question I have is for Allison. Do you want to talk about voters who put identification on their ballots?
Identifying marks on the ballot itself.
Yeah,
The
they
concern.
sign their name on the ballot, for example.
Yes, the concern that Alan is raising is that we make sure that voters, when we're urging voters to be sure to sign the oath associated with their ballot, which in most cases is on the envelope. For the web delivery voters, it goes on a separate piece of paper that is inserted inside their envelope with their ballot. But the place where a signature is to be given is on that oath document. Voters should not sign their ballot itself. That is an identifying mark that is a cause for the board to need to reject their ballot. There are very few reasons why we would need to reject a ballot, but that is one of them.
Okay. David?
Thank you. First, just to clarify, when Allison said that we are not allowed by law to start counting the ballots until the Thursday after the election, that has been the law for some time, and we've been counting starting the mail-in ballots, absentee ballots before they were called mail-in ballots, starting on the Thursday after the election for many elections, with the exception of 2020, when there was an emergency declaration that allowed us to start counting the ballots earlier. And you may recall that we started counting the general election ballot about a month before the general election, and we finished counting the general election ballots the day before the school board was getting sworn in. So we finished on November 30th. They were sworn in on December 1st. This year, there was legislation passed by the legislature that would have allowed us to start counting the ballots on June 24th. The governor vetoed that legislation, despite saying that he agreed with the idea of counting the ballots before the election. But it's because of that veto that we are now in a situation where we can't start until then. And so we are following the law as we always do. And if it takes us a long time, which we always do, because we're the largest county in Maryland, and we are frequently the last ones to finish counting our ballots, it's really not our fault. It's really because there's lots of ballots and we can't start counting them until the Thursday after the election. I have a question about what Boris said about the judges. I want to make sure I understand, because I do understand that there's a difference in the job of the canvass judge and the job of the judge at the polls. Are we accepting anyone as a canvass judge who has never been an election judge of another kind and has never been a canvass judge for us before? In other words, can I, as a registered voter in Montgomery County, become a canvass judge by sending you an application as an election judge application if I've never served as an election judge before and never served as a canvass judge before?
If you are in the system, if you are registered as election judge, you reach out to us. We will have
Let's back up, Boris. What does it take to be registered in the system as an election judge?
You have to go to our website, apply to become election judge in Montgomery County. So you have.
Okay. So if I go to the website, I do the application, I pass the quiz or whatever it is that I have to do, then I'm eligible to be a canvass judge?
We don't need you to pass the quiz. Quiz is designed for early voting and polling election day election judges. Quiz
Okay.
is designed to address canvass work.
So once again, if I want to be a canvasser, I've never been an election judge, I've never been a canvasser before, I apply to be an election judge, and then you consider my application, and I could end up being a canvasser having never done it before.
That's okay.
And what kind of training then would I get if I was new to the canvas process, and when and how do you do it?
You will go through a training, hands-on training that will take place before the canvas opens. It will include every step from ballot opening, removing content of the ballot, spreading whatever ballots on the table, identifying the content, if there is anything wrong, how to share with your team member. That's like every step of canvas will be taught to every canvas.
Okay, and as it stands now, if someone, since the canvas is happening after the election, let's suppose that someone who was an active participant in a campaign wants to be a canvasser, can they be a canvasser?
Like a political candidate?
Well, let's start with someone who worked for a political candidate and work our way to the political candidate. Let's suppose that it's not someone who's on the ballot itself, because that would seem like a conflict of interest. But let's say that I was a big volunteer for a candidate on the ballot and I apply to be a canvasser. Can I be a canvasser?
David, I'll have to look at that and send you an email with the answer.
Okay, I think that would be useful to know. I mean, basically, I'm just trying to get a sense as to whether there are any limitations on who can apply to be a canvasser and kind of what our criteria are for picking them. Obviously, part of our checks and balances is not only that, it's that we have bipartisan teams and that we have lots of people checking each other's work. But it would be helpful to know, kind of what our criteria are. How many canvassers do we expect to have on a daily basis?
We are prepping for 20 teams, 40 canvassers a day. However, our past experience showed that not everyone can sign up for every day or full time every day. So we will aim to have a list of 60 available canvassers. Because apart from these things, life happens. So there will be days when people cannot show up. So we will aim for 50% larger list than we plan to have canvassers on each day.
And how many did we have in 2020?
In 2020, the highest number that we run in a day, we had 34 tables prepared, I believe, but we never had them full. So I would say around 60 or 62 was the highest that we had in one day. Don't take me,
Okay.
I have to go back and check the payroll for this one.
Okay, and is it possible if we had enough people who were interested and available that we could do something like that, or are we capped at the numbers that you were talking about having 20 teams?
In 2020, we canvassed 350,000 ballots. This time, even if we have them all back, we will have 100,000.
Right, but this time we're also doing it after the election is over, where everyone will be breathing down our necks, asking us, when are we going to be done? Whereas last time you had a month before the election where that was not the case.
Okay, so we can look at the space. We will, I literally called this morning that the space is currently occupied for some conference. Once it's over, they will set up the space, prepare the layout as we instructed them. We will go for a walkthrough. The plan for us is to have enough space in the room to accommodate 40 canvassers, to accommodate board members and legal counsel, canvas lead, media, 20 members of public with associated ADA stands, and to manage to preserve certain distance between the observers and the canvassers themselves.
Sure.
So
all that sounds great. All I'm suggesting to you is that I would not assume that because you're likely to have, let's say, 1/3 of the number of mail-in ballots than you had 2 years ago, that that means that you don't have as much of a need for the number of canvassers, because we obviously don't know which races will be the close enough races that that the mail-in ballots will make a difference. But there's a good possibility that that will be the case in at least some races. And as you may know, we will get those phone calls so that you don't have to, but we will get those phone calls. So to the extent, and the public will want to know, what happened. So to the extent that, we do whatever we can to be efficient, that would be great. Are we going to be publishing results every day at the end of canvass that shows what was canvassed on that day?
Yes.
Yes, we have to. So, regulation.
Okay, so basically we will have new results every day of canvass that will get us closer to final results.
Yeah, we'll be doing the same process we normally do.
Okay.
We post it.
And do I remember, in terms of the same process, and you can tell me because my memory might not be right on this, we tend to do the batches in order by precinct number. Is that right? So that the first batch we get is likely to be, precinct 1-1, and go on from there, or is it not necessarily in that order?
Batches are created in order they were received. So we start creating batches on precinct level as they start coming in. So first 10 batches will include any ballot received from any 10 precincts that we receive.
Okay, so basically, when we're counting the mail-in ballots, there's not going to be a pattern of parts of the county. In other words, if someone is trying to figure out the rest of the results based on where we counted, they would have to look at the specific precincts in which we are counting, because it's not like we're starting with one part of the county and going to another part. We are taking them in the order in which the ballots are received, which could be completely random.
Absolutely, because first batch of 3,001 ballots that we received was distributed in 900 batches. They don't follow the precinct style, and we are filling them up. So it won't be possible to assume which batch is next, which precinct is coming next.
Okay, and then just a final question about the schedule. I heard what Allison said in terms of expecting the predominant amount of the work to be done by the first week of August, which is about 2 weeks after the election. And then the final certification by that Friday, August 12th. And I guess there's a period in there where we have Canvas dates scheduled on our schedule, but it sounds like they're there just in case because there will be some time period during which we will not be canvassing, but staff will be doing their audits. Do I have that right?
That's correct.
So basically, we're holding on to those dates because we don't know exactly how long this is all going to take. But our hope is that the majority of our work is done by that first week of August.
That's our goal.
Amen.
Yeah, we're gonna need that help, Diane, to get that done. Thank you very much.
Okay, are we finished? Any other question? All right. If those of you which they were here before, usually we audit and each board member take a number and then they will pick that one as for audit. And this is the thing. So how do we do it, Kevin?
Just take out 13 and hand them to me.
13.
Don't open them, just hand them to me.
How do we know where it's 13? Doesn't have
You
anything.
just count to 13, put 13 on the table.
Randomly.
Random.
This is 13, okay.
That's
No,
one.
It's one.
One, you got. count the 13.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we have 13 randomly selected strips of paper that each contain the identification of a precinct. So we'll hand those over to the board
Okay.
attorney.
Kevin is, oh,
Oh, there we go.
you destroy our display.
And he's placing them in an envelope.
And those are the precincts that will be audited?
Yeah,
Yes, they're going to be,
yeah.
they will be audited by staff.
And I
Okay.
gather we do not know what those are so that we can be assured that those precincts are indicative of the rest of the county and don't get any special treatment.
Correct. I maintain it and hand it to Janet after the election's over.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, we have done that one. Canvas update. Old business. Any old business? Anybody want to talk? No? David, your hand
Oh,
is up.
you know what? I do have a quick old business. Kevin was, I'm not putting you on the spot, Kevin, because I don't need it right now. But Kevin was just going to check into a question of whether I had seen somewhere that there was some connection between Dominion and the voting system that we use. So if we could just at some point get a follow-up on that.
Okay, I will look into it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. David, no, David's gone. No more old business. All right, action item. Lisa is not here to serve what action item.
I'm to draft a letter regarding the ballot marking device.
Okay,
Kevin is going to draft a letter regarding the ballot marking devices, and I'm going to work with Kevin and with Hilberto on a sign and on some social media messaging regarding the use of the ballot marking devices. In my notes, see if I had other follow-up items.
And the sign is for all early voting sites and for all precincts.
Correct.
yeah. Okay,
And Madam President,
Yes.
there was some discussion about daily reminders for election judges, I think.
Yes, thank you, Alex.
I don't know what form that would take. Maybe it doesn't need to be scripted out, but
Yeah, we are communicating with our center managers on a daily basis, and so in our communication with them, and we'll leave it to them how they do that.
Well, actually, Allison, I thought that what the board was suggesting was not leaving it to them, but making sure that they communicate it to everybody every day.
Communicate it to everybody. Do they all do a morning huddle? I'm not entirely
Yes, they're
sure.
instructed,
Yeah,
especially if I send them new instructions.
yeah.
Because the
Here, you
judges
can-
change, the chief judges change every day. The center manager stays basically. We instruct them every day. If I send you anything, go over everybody every day because they may have missed it. You go over everything that was sent if we change.
I was just hesitating because I wasn't sure if they all do kind of a morning huddle or if they're kind of going one by one down and talking individually, the people that weren't there the previous day,
No,
but
we ask them to do a meeting every morning.
yeah.
And I think that's a good practice because if you have 10 separate conversations, it's a lot easier to forget something at some point and hear something different.
So we will specifically ask them to cover this each morning with all of their election judges then.
And Allison, you might have mentioned it and I didn't hear it, that you're gonna try to get the data on the numbers of people who use the BMD.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe before July 19th, but that's not guaranteed.
No,
correct.
She will try.
We can do it as part of closing on Thursday. We just have a form, have them as they're closed, get the BMD number.
Yeah, I think it's
Okay,
already on
yeah.
that form.
All right.
I just didn't want to promise,
not.
but okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, yes,
another action is for Alan and me to get together and develop some suggested ways to handle the storage problem.
Right. You just do your schedule. That I don't know.
Yeah, I'll take care of that.
Okay. All right then. We don't have any minutes because Lisa is not here and we will do it later. Future meeting is July 19, 11 o'clock. The election day, usually we have a meeting.
Is that going to be virtual or in person?
Kevin, the 11.
what do you want to do?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
I'm
don't-
assuming that you all want to be out in the field
Yeah.
and we've established a practice of doing these meetings virtually.
The only reason I asked that question is that we have frequently used that meeting as an opportunity if a particular area needs different equipment, different ballot styles or whatever, that board members can run them over that way.
Yes.
And I know that's what happened in 2018. That's, I spent the whole afternoon at the Praisner Center in 2018 because we learned at lunchtime that what a problem it was.
Okay, how many people would like to come to the board? How many? Can you raise your hand and see? All of you wanted to come or?
Well,
I'm still in a situation where I can't drive.
Okay.
I prefer virtual. I vote for virtual.
well, I'm fine with virtual. I'm just saying that it'll be that much more work for the staff. If we decide virtually that we need something in a certain place, someone else will have to get it to them, but that's okay.
Well, why don't we plan on virtual unless there's something that makes us change it later?
Yeah, okay, we have runners. All right, then that would be good enough. And all of you, all right, then. That's it. Do I have any other subject you like to talk before we go? No. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Those in
I
favor?
beat you, Diane.
Those in favor?
Oh, yes.
Aye.
You want to go home?
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure. I think Diane was seconding that motion.
We'll take that as a second, yeah.
Alan told me that he will buy dinner for everybody. Okay, thank you so very much. See you on the.
Very well, everybody.
Okay, take care.
Happy trails.